Pace has dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It's a Thursday. We've got Niko Moreno joining us in hour number 2. We got updates on the Paul Arriola sweepstakes going on across North America involving Club America and Liga MX, Dallas, Charlotte. Who knows? There might be an unnamed bidder showing up. Al Nasser might show up with a giant briefcase. There's no telling what's going on with that. We'll get into that. We'll get into Toronto and all of the moves that they are linked to. I think right now I've got three pretty solid things to get into. A fourth one with a player who has been linked with Toronto. They're a little busy these days. But we're going to start with some of the worldwide stuff because there's a couple things that are breaking this morning to talk about. This has been on the horizon for a while. FIFA has confirmed restrictions on the loan market. This is going to be kind of transitioned in, but eventually you're going to get to where clubs can only have a maximum of 6 players out on loan at one time. 6 players in on loan, 6 players out on loan at one time. Everybody has jumped in on this with, it's about Chelsea. It's all about Chelsea. It's all about Chelsea. They're only looking at the out on loan part of it. I'll take the other side to it. A club like Defensa y Justicia, who is a very small club who's had success with a lot of players in on loan. Yeah, they're going to struggle in the situation too. Other clubs like Defensa y Justicia, who have brought in a lot of players on loan. Now, many times when these clubs bring players in on loan, they're bringing players in who should be exempt according to FIFA's rules. Talents under the age of 21 and considered homegrown will be exempt. Now, I would love some clarification on, is that separate or is that they have to have both? Is it under 21 and club-trained players, or are they separate things? It's FIFA. You always need these clarifications. But it's going to transition from the 22-23 European season. You can have 8 in, 8 out. 23-24 season, it's 7, and then from July 1st, 2024, it's 6. Jared, I don't know if Scotland has really been in this type of situation. Your Celtics and your Rangers could have quite a few guys out on loan from time to time. We know that there are some English clubs. Yes, of course, Chelsea, of course, Manchester City. Some clubs with a lot of clout have a lot of players out on loan. What kind of effect do you think this has globally?
I think it's pretty substantial. It is going to affect Scotland because, you look at Rangers and Celtic, for example. Let's just go there because that's the elephant in the room. They spend a lot of money on talent. They develop local players. What do y'all think happens to those local players? They don't just go into hammer space into stasis. They get loaned. Teams all around Scotland in the Championship, even in the Premier SPFL, even on down. I mean, they're bringing people in on loan. Those guys are sending people out on loan so that they can get players who are getting experience, but they're going to get actual game minutes and substantial game minutes because they stay in Glasgow. You're probably not going to get that one because if you have an 18-year-old kid, he's not going to start you're not going to start him in front of Jota if he's a left winger, or he's not going to start in front of Cameron Carter-Vickers, who's having a career renaissance. So that's just the basics of it. We run into this in MLS all the time when we talk about some players so-and-so should go out on loan because they're just not going to get minutes. We talked about it with Atlanta. I don't think Jackson Conway fits that mold, but if you had another young striker, like an 18-year-old striker, they're not going to play in front of Joseph. Probably not going to play in front of Jackson Conway. They got to get minutes somewhere.
Yeah, now those guys are going to be okay. The guys who are under 21 and home developed, homegrown in MLS terms, those guys are going to be okay. They're not going to count to your 6. The question would be if you have a situation like Eric Lopez, for example, where he's not homegrown, but he's under the age of 21. Does he count towards your 6? I don't think MLS clubs are generally going to be in trouble with this either way, with the loans in or the loans out. But while looking, and look, UEFA's done this with their whole financial fair play, where it's like, oh yeah, we're going to make sure we keep the big guys in line. Who you're really hurting are some other teams with this kind of situation. I mean, I immediately thought of Defensa y Justicia because they bring in a lot of guys on loan from River. And we talked about this with the David Martinez situation, where he was going to come to Atlanta. He had been on loan to Defensa. Defensa had bought 50% of the pass, but the other 50 was still with River. And they have a relationship where a bunch of guys go back and forth. That's going to hurt Defensa if they get limited to a certain number of players. Now, if the guys are exempt because they're under the age of 21 and they're coming from River, and River's part is good to loan them out, if that allows Defensa to loan them in and it doesn't count, okay, cool, then it doesn't hurt them. But there are plenty of clubs worldwide, John, and I don't think we see this maybe as much in the Premier League, but we probably see it in lower levels in England and in plenty of other countries, where there are clubs who survive on bringing guys in on loan on a regular basis because they just don't have the resources to go out and buy a bunch of players. And there are clubs who loan out guys who are over the age of 21 and, might have been developed at the club, but haven't been able to stick. It goes both ways.
It does. And when you were bringing the topic in this morning, obviously Chelsea was the first one that popped into my head, because there have been times in the past where you've seen double-digit numbers, and that's close to that 16, where you've seen either in and out in combination, and you'd sit there and see loan. And there are clubs that, because of their financials not matching the bigger guns in their own division, whatever division we're talking about, they're having to work with these loan deals. And I think that what this will do is it'll have to make you think about ages and all of these other dynamics that you weren't necessarily thinking of leading into it currently and in years past. And so I think that it does impact those clubs like a Defensa and those clubs that are having to be more nimble when it comes to putting people on the pitch and things like that. And so for me, it's going to be intriguing to see those clubs not in the top flight, like we gravitate toward Manchester City, Chelsea, etc. But for me, in the lower divisions and the clubs that aren't as well to do, to use that word, will you see the clubs at the bottom end of the Premier League? How are they going to be as nimble now with these rules of engagement coming across? That for me is going to be the interesting part. The clubs that are trying to hang on and trying to make that next step using this traditionally, how do they adjust to this rule? That one's going to be an interesting part for me.
Yeah. We'll see where this goes, because it's going to be a transition. Chelsea will be one that has to transition with this. Plenty of other clubs will too. Chelsea, as we've talked about, John, mute yourself. I don't know what's going on with your feedback there. Sorry. I don't know what outside of just complaining has triggered this with Chelsea and other clubs hoarding players. I know that's been the primary side of this. We'll see what this changes. Okay, that 7th, 8th, 9th guy that Chelsea might have signed and wanted in the fold in case they turned into something but didn't. Where do they go? Are they better off, is the question, with being out on the free market and being able to sign somewhere else rather than being under a Chelsea contract and being loaned out? That's if it benefits the game overall, because instead of them being on a Chelsea deal, they're at Tottenham or they're at West Ham or whatever. Okay, let's see it. Let's see how it plays out. I am a little bit on the other side, like, this is going to hurt smaller clubs too. And that part I'm not a giant fan of. And as Thomas points out, when you go deeper into this, as always, there's more to it underneath the surface than what's getting the headlines. There is a limitation on the number of loans per season between the same clubs. Now, this will affect Defensa, because there have been situations where Defensa's had more than 3. That's going to be the maximum, probably from that 2024 date. I would assume there's a transition period for this too. 3 is going to be the maximum between clubs. 3 players loaned out to a single club, and a maximum of 3 players loaned in from a single club. That's going to affect Defensa in a big way. Look, Defensa is one club in the world that is going to be dealing with this. There are plenty of others. We've seen some of the Belgian clubs that have been in this. And look, this goes into another big story that I wanted to just touch on a little bit this morning, as it's still really developing. Brazil has changed their structure for clubs. We've talked about it in the past, how, you had the typical, I think in Latin America, membership-driven clubs where you have elections, you have presidents elected, et cetera, et cetera. They have changed the laws now to where groups can come in and invest. It's encouraging foreign investment. You've got 777 Partners LLC, De Grossa Capital Partners, who are each in talks to buy historic Brazilian clubs. You have one club that John Textor, North American millionaire, has bought, Botafogo, who's kind of fallen on hard times. They're looking at creating your city football group kind of situations. Okay. Now you're going to have some limitations in doing that. It's still absolutely doable, but you're just not going to be able to have a situation where, okay, Manchester City signs all these guys and then farms them out. You're going to have to kind of divvy up your numbers and make sure your numbers match up. Just adds a little bit of weirdness. Yes, loaning players to an affiliate to a second team, that kind of thing. That is true. That won't be an issue. It's going to be a process, but the Brazilian thing is something to watch as well. Now, this is moving past the new FIFA loan situation. You've got new money coming into Brazil that hasn't been there in a long time. We've talked about it from the MLS perspective. You're seeing more deals with MLS teams and Brazilian teams than ever before. Brazilian teams are going to be in different financial positions very quickly, but is that a good thing or a bad thing or just a thing? Kind of leaning towards the last of that. I don't know if it's good or bad, but they need the money in some situations because some of these clubs just can't compete anymore. But what are the end games for it? And there's a really good article over at ESPN, and thanks to contributor Niall for sharing this with me, about the Botafogo situation. So Botafogo and John Textor. I don't know John Textor's situation, but he's a North American millionaire. Was greeted like the Messiah, according to ESPN, when he landed in Rio to take over Botafogo. Okay, he's going to take over 90% of Botafogo. He has 40% of Crystal Palace right now. He has 80% of Molenbeek of the Belgian second division. He's currently negotiating to buy a stake in Benfica in Portugal. All right, it's not quite like City Football Group in that Palace, Benfica are both big. There's not like one, there's not a pyramid exactly. You have a bunch of clubs in a portfolio. I'm sure the Premier League fans right now, and John included, are throwing things because I dared to put somebody else maybe there with Palace, but he's only got 40% of Palace too, and I think that's going to factor into the control situation here. But is Botafogo just going to be a farm team? And that's a concern because in Brazil, and Flamengo is a prime example of this, and other clubs are as well. You have these like dual tracks you have to deal with of your roster. So you're going to have a lot of young talent. Brazil exports more players worldwide than anybody else in the world. There's a reason for that. So you're going to have plenty of young kids coming through that are good. Okay. You got to play them. They don't develop by sitting on the bench. They don't develop by practice. They develop by playing games. You have to play them. You have to put them in moments to pass or fail. All right. You're always going to have, and this is very common across South America, you're always going to have those guys who came up to your club, went to Europe, did really well, time to come home when they get, into the 30s and 31, 32, 33, they want to come play closer to home, and they come back. You're always going to have a market for those guys. Those guys sell shirts. Those guys are huge leaders in the locker room. Those guys are linked to the club's history, all these things. You have to make a place for that. Then you're going to have the guys in the middle who in Argentina in recent years, although this is starting to change a little bit, you didn't have much of these guys. The guys who just maybe went and didn't make it and come back quickly, maybe guys who never went, who are just good, solid professionals. You've got them too. And as we see in MLS, those guys are critical. We talked about it with Toronto in 2017. Everybody pointed at Giovinco and at Altidore and at Michael Bradley, the big money signings. But that team won because of Marky Delgado, of Jonathan Osorio, of Drew Moore. Drew Moore especially. Drew Moore is that guy. He wasn't good enough when he was younger to make that move to Europe, but he was one of the best center backs that MLS has ever had. So you need those guys too. So you've got to balance all of that. If Botafogo just develops guys to move them on to Palace or Benfica or Belgium, they're not going to win. And the other thing about Brazil that we've talked about many times is there is an intense, sometimes insane pressure to win. How are these investors going to be treated? They might be treated great right now because Botafogo's broke, other clubs are broke, they need money. They're going to do some things to get people happy. Ultimately, they're not going to be jumping up and down about players moving to Benfica. They're going to be jumping up and down about winning things. And you've got to balance that. You know, John, I mean, it's a tightrope for these investors to be able to manage this, and we'll see how they walk it.
One of the first things that popped into my head was, okay, so they've invested all of this money. We know that there's huge debt that's attached. How much of that investment goes to eradicating the debt, and how much of that capital is actually going into club improvement, bringing in players, making sure you advance? And so I think
it's got to be the latter. I mean, I don't see why you would buy the club if you can't do the big picture thing of it. Like, why would you even do it if the debt's going to keep you from developing players?
Right.
There's no point.
Right. And it just the level of that investment of bringing in players, though, it might not be that initial 330 million is what I'm saying. It's like you take that large.
No, they're not bringing. No. You're not bringing in players. They're not buying Botafogo to bring in players. Let's. I want to make this clear. It's not to do that. They're buying it to develop assets. Like, this guy's buying Botafogo to develop assets. It's not about bringing guys in. He's not doing that. He's developing players that he can sell or move to his other clubs and then sell and get rich. That's the idea.
And then you wonder there with the fan base how accustomed they are to this notion and how comfortable they're going to be with that notion with this new business model that's coming in. And so that for me is, yeah, it's like we're used to seeing young players develop and they stay, or they'll go somewhat close hemispherically.
No, they'll go. No. They're used to guys going. It's not it. Like, it's not like something's changed. I want to be clear in what I was saying before. Like, I'm not saying that the Brazilian culture has changed because of this stuff. No. The Brazilian culture is the Brazilian culture. This is somewhat similar to what Independiente del Valle has tried to do in Ecuador. But there's a giant difference. Independiente del Valle is very small fan base, didn't have a history of success. They just won their first ever league title. Yeah, that ain't the case at Botafogo and these other clubs. These are clubs who have won historically. These are clubs with giant fan bases. These are clubs who are not just going to be happy about, okay, our kid's gone on to Benfica. That's nice. They want to win. They want to win now. They want to win yesterday. They want to win tomorrow. And they've got to, these investors who are needed in Brazil, because we've talked about it with some of these giant clubs falling down into the second division and beyond. The money for some clubs is there. The money for a lot of clubs is not there. They need the investment. But Jarrett, the investors have to come in and know what they're getting into in these situations. I mean, I'm sure from a parallel standpoint, the rebirth of Rangers, like, those investors knew, those owners knew when they come into that thing, it's not just to rebuild a club and be a nice solid club in Scotland. It's to win. Otherwise, you're going to get run out of town fast.
Yeah, I mean, it is a matter of you gotta win because it is culturally different. You're right. How do people adjust to that culture, though? I mean, when you get down there, what happens if you got an owner who doesn't fully, who it's easy for someone to come in and buy something up and like, hey, man, this is a place you got to win. Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Of course, we're going to try and win. Yeah, why wouldn't we? I mean, we're buying a team. We're going to try and win. No, man, you don't understand when I say you have to win. I don't think you get it. What happens when they don't get it, and the first time they get backlash and they clap back in the media, and things get weird down there. Because it's a different animal than England, than the United States.
You
Hell, than
better-
Argentina.
Yeah, you better not show up if you're going to start clapping back at people. You better just stay in the United States and stay away
You know
from
what? If
it.
you're going to clap back, you better make sure you're real comfortable with, extracting a knife or something.
You better make sure you've got good security around you.
Remotely, yeah.
You better be really careful about that. It's going to be weird in Brazil for a little while as, look, you have some very interesting distressed properties that investors are going to come in and buy. You've got a really unique situation with talent development. And if you have these connections like Textor, who, what's the deal with him, John? He was one of the founders of Fubo TV.
Yeah. And he's former executive chair, former CEO, featured, get this, Forbes gave him this title 6 years ago, Hollywood's virtual reality guru. And
what in the world does that mean?
He's pioneer of disruptive technologies, content, and digital distribution for business models. So basically, like, think of your Fubo TVs. That's what this guy did.
Well, no, virtual reality is not Fubo TV. Like that's a little different.
Well, I'm talking digital distribution and creative content.
Yes, that part. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm. Can I propose a motion for 2022 to the floor? Can we put disrupt on the list of banned buzzwords, please?
Fine with me.
It gets so overused. It's so obnoxious. We'll continue to be disruptive in the podcasting realm. Yeah. Good grief. Anyway,
artificial intelligence, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
That's
yes.
what it goes up to.
Yes, drummer John, facepalm about what John thinks virtual reality is. That's good. Okay. Brazil's going to be very interesting to watch just because if you're MLS, I'm watching these investors coming in and I'm watching what they do. And are they going in figuring, all right, we gotta strip costs here really quick? Are there going to be guys available? Maybe they don't go to a Benfica or a Palace, but maybe come to MLS for really good rates. Are there going to be potential partnership situations? Lots of different things. It's going to be a new frontier in some ways. So I'm intrigued by it. We'll see how that goes. But right now you've got Botafogo sold to John Textor, the guru of virtual reality, according to Forbes back in the day.
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Forbes. Yes.
Thank you. You got 777 Partners, DeGrossa Capital Partners. 777's based in Miami. They're in talks to acquire Vasco da Gama out of Rio. Of course, nobody's commenting on it. DeGrossa is in talks with America Mineiro, not Atletico Mineiro, the smaller team in that area. That's where Richarlison came, for example, to get a sense of what you're looking at and why you're buying this stuff. Okay. And you had Cruzeiro recently with Ronaldo and a whole bunch of other people. It wasn't Ronaldo cutting all the big checks. It was a whole bunch of other people. You got a bunch of these. There's going to be more. There are some, as we're talking about with Internacional, with Flamengo, Palmeiras, clubs who have money and are in pretty good positions. But there's some who, oof. No, Strummer John, we're not going to completely derail the show by asking John what he thinks NFTs are, because I'm afraid of what we would get answered. And
isn't that what the WWE did for their alternate to?
I see you put something in there, and it looks like a cut and paste job of typing or finding it and cutting and pasting.
No, I was just remembering what they did with Zion Williamson, and it's like somebody had a video clip of him in high school dunking or something, and then they treated that as an NFT. It's like, hey, you want Zion Williamson's one of his first dunks as a high school player here, and it's treated as an NFT.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're gonna move on because this is gonna go off the rails really fast. Okay, other news, Jared, I need your help. Please help me out. In CONCACAF, they're going to have VAR now in the World Cup qualifiers, not from before, not at the beginning of the World Cup qualification process. They're going to have it for the rest of the qualifiers. That makes a lot of sense, Jarrett, doesn't it?
It does. Makes a lot of sense. I wonder if UEFA is going to have it across the board for all their qualifiers and not just some of them.
Well, they're done. They're done. So I think they'll have it for the playoffs.
Will they, though? Because what are the odds that UEFA has it in some of the playoffs, but not all of them.
I think luckily these are all fairly large stadia and situations where they can do it. That's what they keep bringing up as that's what they keep saying is the issue. Last time I checked, like pretty much every game in the world is being televised somewhere, right? You guys know more about this stuff than me. VAR is using replays to help a referee make decisions. The video assistant referee, the VAR, that individual, that human, is using video from broadcast cameras to decide, hey, I should help the referee with the situation, or no, the referee's got it. So I don't remember there anything being about VAR and rules about it like, well, they have to have 7 cameras, not 6. Well,
right.
The camera has to be positioned right here.
Correct.
Yeah, you might not get everything you'd like to get in a perfect situation. I think every VAR worldwide is going to wish they might have had a different camera in a different place. Can't you still do VAR with, at a minimum, the TV feed? I mean, at a baseline, it's better than nothing.
Yeah. See, yeah, that's where the trumpet fanfare should come in. Ta-da!
I mean, it's yeah, I wish you had 10 cameras, but you might only have 4. And okay.
Hard.
I'll take it.
Uh-huh.
I'll take the 4.
I mean, 4, yes, is less than 10. But, and I know that you really...
Now, hold up. Thomas says there's an additional technology package required for the VAR to pull up the different cameras, back up, scroll forward, etc. Yeah, in the way that some people use it, in the way that some situations use it. I get it. But isn't having a literal TV broadcast in front of you better than not having anything? Like, use what you can use. I think it's idiotic to set up some kind of bar of, well, we got to have this package, and we got to have this camera, we got to have this mainframe, and we got to have, this amount of memory on the computer we're going to use to run. Shut up. Just stop.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at a minimum, use the TV. And yeah, you might not be able to do everything that you normally do, but work with what you got, because it's better than nothing. And I think we're at a point where you can figure this out across all of Concacaf now, and all of UEFA and all this. Use it. If you have this great super package, wonderful. Use that. If you got the TV footage from Channel 4 in whatever place you're in, use that. Use what you can and get the person some help, because it's pointless that for years the fourth official couldn't look at a replay at in the stadium monitor. Luckily the fourth official in the World Cup final in 2006 broke that and saw that Zinedine Zidane headbutted Materazzi in the chest, and he was sent off. That was the first usage of VAR. Illegally, but, allegedly anyway. Of course, they didn't see anything on the cameras, and of course, everybody knew what was going on from the beginning. Of course, sure, whatever. Use what you got. But this is ridiculous that CONCACAF waits till now to do it. I'm glad they're doing it, but it's still dumb. It's going to be there for CONCACAF Champions League from the beginning of this year as well. That's good. It's going to be used at the U20 championships for men's and women, which is good. It's going to be used for the CONCACAF W Championship. That's good. Should have been there from the beginning. There was no real excuse except dumbness, in my opinion.
If you have only 4 cameras, and Jarrett, when we're in television situations where you don't have 7 or 8, you've got 4. Last time I checked, you still have to have individuals who are in charge of punching that feed, punching those cameras up, and wherever that location is, it could be at a world feed location, that's where you should have VAR housed, so they can look at however many cameras you have and however many replays you got, so you can sit there and actually go, okay, let's take a look at this. instead of, oh, they only have X number of cameras and they don't have the technology. Last time I checked, there's a technical director somewhere who's moving things back and forth so you can see what you got, and they're looking, the producer, the director, and the technical director. They're all in these places.
John, one thing, though, who do they work for? They don't work for the referees or the Confederation.
No, they don't.
So you do need somebody else, but basically you need a DVR, I guess is what it comes down to. You need a DVR machine to be able to take what's there at a minimum, at a minimum level. If you don't have all this other stuff, you need a DVR to where you can take the TV footage and record it and rewind it. Jarrett, please fix all this because this is stupid.
No, I can't.
Please try.
This is also it's also one of those things where you like your teams that are doing broadcasts to know something about the sport they're doing. By the way, it actually helps.
Well, that helps. Yes, that's accurate.
Because if you have someone who knows what they're looking at, they might know what they're looking for in fixing these sorts of things. I don't know if there's a clear way to fix it outright. There should be, though. There should be a simpler way to do this because, if for no other reason, we're dealing with a world now in which you can get a broadcast pretty much anywhere. You can get a switcher pretty much anywhere. You can get a soundboard pretty much anywhere. It shouldn't be that difficult to set this up, especially with the federations, especially with UEFA, because Jesus, the money y'all have, it shouldn't be that hard to find a couple $1,000 bills in the couch cushions.
Yes.
To make sure that everyone has the equipment they need to effectively run VAR, so that we don't end up with like an Ireland France 2010 situation.
And look, the biggest reasons why you have VAR. I mean, Thomas, thank you. Like the Brazil estimated $6 million to run VAR for their entire season a few years ago. That's probably with all the bells and whistles and all this other stuff. The biggest situations that you wish you had VAR for, it's why it's there. It's stuff like what Jarrett mentioned, the Thierry Henry handball against Ireland, the Diego Maradona hand of God goal in the World Cup in 1986, the Zidane headbutt if that had been missed. Stuff like that. I don't need a bunch of fancy bells and whistles. I just need a freaking replay. That's it. So this idea that it has to be all this other stuff, no, at a minimum, I just need the TV footage. At a minimum, if I have that, you should have a VAR official there. The VAR is there to help the referee make the decisions. Now, you're going to have to figure out in some of those situations, or the referee is going to have to use the VAR like they used an AR for years and years and years, where you didn't get to go look at what the AR saw in terms of an offside. You trusted it or you didn't trust it. You said yes or no. Flag goes up. That doesn't mean the whistle's automatically blown. There are plenty of times in the history of this game that the referee blew it off and said, no, he's onside. We're good. Not calling it.
We literally had that in 2020, the first game, Atlanta United at Nashville. Flag goes up on Emerson Heineman's half volley goal.
Incorrect.
That ended up being the deciding goal. Flag goes up incorrectly. Referee waves it off. The entire Nashville team stops because they see the flag. They ignore the referee waving play on. Emerson Heineman has a shot and scores, and Nashville gets really upset because they stopped playing.
Yeah, I mean, if that's where we are with what you have for that crew that day. Because, again, referees, we'll talk about the MLS referees who work with pro and work with VAR in stadiums and have everything with that. Well, the next weekend, they might be doing a college game with a different set of rules, no VAR, maybe no fourth official. And they figure it out. They're pretty good about that. So if all you got is the TV footage and you don't have a fancy monitor to send it down for the referee to look at, well, then you're going to hold the play. The VAR is going to take a look, and the VAR is going to tell you what they saw and explain it. And if the referee believes it, good. If they don't, fine. It's there to fix the big mistakes. The other stuff is great where you can fix other mistakes too. But at a minimum, I'm just saying, I don't want to see a team miss out on a World Cup due to a phantom goal that didn't cross the line. Just saying, hypothetically, of course, that, maybe a TV broadcast could have been used to see, that didn't
But
cross the
Jason,
line. That's not
remember
a goal.
it was supposed to be good for the federation. Remember? I
No,
remember
we're in
everyone saying
we're in
like, no, this is
total
going to be good.
No, we're in total hypotheticals. This never happened, Jarrett. This never ever happened in the history of CONCACAF or any other confederation, by the way. Never happened in the last, I don't know, maybe the last World Cup qualification cycle. Maybe, allegedly. Never happened, though. Never had a team get to the World Cup on a goal that didn't cross the line. No, never happened. Never. But, VAR could have maybe fixed that even with just a janky TV
but
monitor.
If it did happen, it would be okay, and it would build character, like the dad and Calvin and Hobbes said.
If it did, it could, sure. If there are a lot of ifs. If is doing a lot of heavy lifting, but yeah. Anyway, I go bang my head against the wall for a while now. Okay, Inter Miami has gotten one of their forwards that has been training there and has been linked. Leonardo Campana coming over on loan from Wolves. Ecuadorian forward El Mataflo is going to be very upset about this. Miami is starting to make some noise. They're making some moves. They're making some smart moves. Other clubs are making some smart moves. There's some very interesting things going on in MLS right now. Miami's added Campana. They've added Emerson Rodriguez from Millonarios. That was done yesterday. We talked about it a little bit with Dylan on the show. He's 21. Campana's 29. They have went through this full rebuild. It's not quite done. It's probably not going to be done until maybe the summer window next year, where you can start to look ahead at getting out of being grounded by Don Garber for breaking the rules. Jarrett, I mean, just your reaction to the changing face of the Herons down in South Florida.
They have to do something because of the restrictions in place. They're going to have to get creative. And look, this is jumping way ahead of things. But if we're talking about a team that doesn't finish in the basement, that takes a couple scalps and has a respectable year, man, we might be in a situation where we got to give a hand to that front office, because they're having to get creative and they're having to remake things. And we talked about this a bit last night. Kind of like in backstage in the green room, so to speak, about LAFC. LAFC spent a ton of money, and we'll get into the Maxime Crepeau thing.
Yeah. I would like to propose that we change the room's color if we can. I don't want it to be a green room. That's overused.
Do you want it to be a red and black room?
Of course I want it to be a red and black room. Good job, Jarrett. Thank you. You win today.
I don't know if you know this. Apparently Georgia won a title. Alabama lost one.
I hear some.
I'm trying to break news. Okay.
Yes, I hear some things about.
I'm trying to break some news for you. But I digress. LAFC is in a similar boat where they're spending a bunch of money trying to. Yeah, dude, Home Field Apparel's made so much money. God bless you all. But it's a matter of LAFC is kind of restructuring themselves in a way on the field. It's a bit of a facelift. It's going to be a lot of new faces on that field, on that team, and they're going about it a different way because they can. Because Miami can't. Because Miami has shackles that you would put on Thanos right now to keep him from moving, and they're having to get creative about it.
They're not quite that bad. I think some of the shackles they put on themselves were because they made a lot of bad moves, and where Chris Henderson, I think, fixed the first level of shackles with the Lewis Morgan deal. These other moves are more about a proper build of a team that they just didn't do in year one or two. Now, they still have work to do. They only have two fullbacks on the roster right now, Kieran Gibbs and Jovan Jones. Both, I believe Jones is on the other side.
Are we talking about Toronto, or are we talking about Miami now?
Well, we're talking about both, but in Miami specifically with Kieran Gibbs and Jovan Jones, they've only got two, and they're both on the left. They could use a right back. Now, they might be able to convert somebody, but they could use a right back. They added Christopher McVeigh, who Dylan mentioned the links that Chris Henderson had in Sweden, bringing in Gustav Svensson. That leads them to McVeigh, a Swedish center back with a lot of experience. Damian Lowe, Jamaican center back, comes in. Jairo Quinteros is one to watch coming in from Bolivia. He's been on the club's roster, I think, from the beginning of 2020, but he was loaned to Bolivar, Marcelo Claure's club, and has done well and has broken into the Bolivian national team. They've got some young guys, too, in Ian Frey and Aime Mabika, who joined the team last year. Nicholas Figal is kind of in limbo right now. Sounds like there's offers for him inside MLS and outside. He was linked with Boca, but that move got pretty quiet pretty fast. So we'll see what the back line looks like, but they need fullbacks. The midfield is pretty good in the holding area with Gregory, with Jean Mota coming in from Santos, Mo Adams, Victor Ulloa, both solid pros in this league. Blaise Matuidi will be on the outside looking in of all this, depending on what he's doing. You probably need a 10 unless you're going to hand the keys to Bryce Duke and let him learn, which you might. I don't know. Breck Shea re-signed. That'll make the difference in them winning a title, I'm sure. It's a good addition. I like Breck. That's a good fit. Emerson Rodriguez,
Breck Shea's
Robbie
going to win
Robinson.
at least one game for them, and everyone's going to be in shambles, and I'm going to laugh for days.
He will. Actually, when you start looking at what the playmaker could look like, it might be Gonzalo Higuain. And that's been talked about, is Higuain playing more as a 10 or a second forward. You add Campana, you have Higuain play behind him. You have Gregory and Jean Mota as the holding midfielders, for example. You play a little bit of a 4-4-1-1, if you want to call it that, which really isn't that different than a 4-2-3-1. It's just moving the numbers around to make it sound pretty. That could work. That could absolutely work. This is going to be interesting. They're not done yet because they don't have a right back. Toronto's not done yet, but Toronto's linked with like every move under the sun right now. Just to get caught up on Toronto's linked moves at the moment, because it's been coming fast and furious. Marky Delgado reportedly heading to the LA Galaxy. I believe he's officially now Mark Delgado, not Marky. I kind of feel a little disappointed about that. $500,000 in GAM is the maximum end. I think it's $400,000 up front, $100,000 on incentives, according to rumors. He signed a new long-term deal in June of 2020, made over $500,000 in guaranteed compensation last year. He's headed to the LA Galaxy to reteam with Greg Vanney, who's always rated Delgado really highly. I have too. I think that's a steal for the LA Galaxy. For $400,000 to $500,000 to bring in Delgado, the Galaxy get better. We'll see what Toronto does to replace that. He's not a designated player, doesn't open up a DP slot, but that's a big absence. Okay. Also, rumors emerged last night that Kamar Lawrence would be leaving Toronto. That would leave them with two fullbacks, the magic number. Luca Petrasso, who is a homegrown developed player, and Alro would be the only fullbacks left for Toronto if Kamar Lawrence leaves. And that would open up an international slot, a decent bit of cap space, but creates a hole on the left side. Now there is talk. This is actually not talk. This is done. Ayo Akinola has signed a new deal. He was a free agent, but it sounds like he didn't really look to leave. He signed a new deal. It's part of the U22 initiative through 24, option for 25. That is done now. That started to bubble up last night, too. So you've got him up top to add into this group. You've got the questions about Josie Altidore. Just to, make things completely normal in Toronto, you've got rumors coming from El Chiringuito. Yes, that happened. Of Alejandro Pozuelo going to Wuhan in China.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, no, that's being talked about by El Chiringuito people. China has some money still, I guess. I don't know if Wuhan has a lot of money, but they need to open up another designated player spot if they're going to do the things they talked about. And this is something we got into yesterday a little bit with Dylan, where I've been confused because just to follow the narratives, I know, man, it's a scary place to be trying to follow narratives, because Gotta always go back to see who's starting those narratives and why they're starting them. But the conversation about Toronto has been going to sign Lorenzo Insigne. They did it. Okay. Going to move Josie Altidore. Okay. Going to sign Andrea Bellotti. Going to sign Dries Mertens. Going to sign somebody. Mertens, by the way, has come out and said he's not interested in the money. We'll get into him in a minute. That's another Toronto rumor out there for you. They're going to move Jefferson Soteldo, but they're going to bring in Salcedo, but he's going to be a designated player. So currently, they have 4 designated players as of July. Currently. Josie Altidore, Lorenzo Insigne, Jefferson Soteldo, and Alejandro Pozuelo. Currently. All right, Soteldo's going to go, but Salcedo's going to come in. That doesn't change anything. You're gonna have to get rid of Altidore in that case because you got to get to 3. Well, you can't add anybody else if you're at 3. I didn't expect Pozuelo to be going anywhere, but I couldn't figure out how they were going to do what they wanted to do. That's why, and it pains me a little bit. I don't know if Wuhan is going to be the team or China is going to be the destination, but if Toronto moved on from Pozuelo, and they don't really even, unless they want to bring in somebody to start the season, they don't have to do that until they add Insigne. They could have Pozuelo for the first half of the year, and he can move in the summer if you need to. But he's the only one who could go, John. And when you look at this, like, if they're going to be as big, bold, and aggressive as you're talking about, and we're not getting into the rest of the roster yet, which has questions, just the big boldness of it, they're out of slots, and they got to move somebody, and they're already going to move Josie, we would assume. So Pozuelo would be the other one to move.
Yeah, this has to be a 2-for-1. And right now with 4 DPs, it's like, so who's it has to be. And when this news came across, yes, I know that we're attributing it to El Chiringuito, but when you and Wuhan, it's an interesting source for the information and an equally interesting target allegedly in this idea. But yeah, to get down to 3, you got to get rid of 2 because you're at 4. And I mean, I wasn't all that great at math, but last time I checked, when you're wanting to have 3 DPs and you got 4 and you're trying to move a couple of guys in and a couple of guys out, it's intriguing on multiple levels for me because I did not anticipate Pozuelo's name being a part of this conversation. But
it had to be. That's the thing, is it had to be because you're signing Insigne and you're trading to get Salcedo. So the only other guy is Pozuelo. It had to be if you're going to open up the other spot.
And it's crazy to see all of these names being shifted and floated around and all this kind of stuff. I mean, Toronto is definitely the biggest. I think it's the biggest soap opera, short of Miami, obviously. But I think that Toronto's the biggest soap opera right now in Major League Soccer because of all of the players that they want to bringing in Insigne and then trying to figure out the Josie Altidore situation. For me, it is the biggest soap opera right now in Major League Soccer.
Yes, to put some of the specifics to this, Marcos Benito of El Chiringuito is reporting that Alejandro Pozuelo will be transferred from Toronto to Wuhan of the Chinese Super League. Yes, that is a real rumor that is out there. It's a rumor. El Chiringuito does have some clout these days. Our boy Josep Pedrerol is reporting that Benzema will go to Real Madrid. He's guaranteeing it, I guess. I don't think Marcos Benito put a guarantee on this, but yes, Pozuelo to Wuhan is now a rumor that is out there. The Dries Mertens thing, just to continue the multitude of Toronto conversations, Dries Mertens did an interview in Italy, was talked about, what he wants to do next. He wants to sign a new deal with Napoli. He's 34. Contract expires at the end of the season. Napoli reportedly not interested in giving him a new deal. He's determined to stay. He took it to a whole nother level. Let me finish the Toronto part of it. When asked if he'd fancy dollars before retiring, the striker replied, "No, I am not interested. Napoli is enough for me." He is not interested. He wants to stay in Napoli. Okay. But when the conversation came up about, well, how are you going to stay at Napoli? He talked about, well, I need to score a bunch of goals because that's why I'm here and I need to score goals, and it is what it is. And then he also said, rather than waste money signing a new striker, talking about Aurelio De Laurentiis, the owner of Napoli. He said, I offer him the chance to sign my son. Okay. He's bargaining with his son's career now. He is young with a long career ahead. If he does that, I won't need to leave Naples or my home. Okay. Merton's son will be born in a couple of months, by the way. He's not here yet.
Class of 2038.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see how that goes. Keep an eye on Dries Mertens because he'll be available somewhere. We're going to get into a lot of this too with Niko Moreno in hour number 2. Jarrett, are you leaving us?
Yes, I am.
What are your final words of wisdom then?
Oh, hell, there's never final words of wisdom, and you know that. Man, mostly just thank God we're done with the festive fixtures. After we talked about it yesterday, makes me feel a little bit better about the universe. Keep an eye on Toronto. Toronto is having that offseason I think that people think they want for their team all the time, but dude, that's got to be a stressful life.
Yeah, I think it's a little stressful talking about Toronto right now when it's like, oh, okay, they're working on this. Oh, Kamar Lawrence. Oh, okay, they signed Akinola. Oh, okay, now Dries Mertens is offering his unborn son to Napoli to stay. What?
Here's the thing about all these moves. When you want your team to be really, really active through a transfer window, the odds of a player you don't want to see moved getting moved goes up with more and more moves.
Yeah. It's also from an MLS perspective, and this probably needs to be reminded to, I don't know, everybody. It's January 20th. The window's open through May 4th, and the season doesn't start until February 26th. There's still a lot of time for things to happen. And as you're seeing the internal trade market starting to pick up. So we'll see where all this goes. Thank you, Jarrett. Appreciate it. Talk to you tomorrow.
You're welcome. Yep.
Okay. Bye. John, tell us about Toca Football and Eliminize.
Question for you. Do you have a young soccer player in your family? If you do, have you ever considered private instruction with a professional instructor to take your favorite player's game to the next level? Well, Toca Football has 4 indoor soccer training centers in the Atlanta area. The trainers utilize innovative technology and a fun environment to help your favorite player's skill and decision-making. So give Toca Football a try, why don't you? Here's how. SDH is partnering with Toca to offer our listeners an opportunity to check out their revolutionary and fun Toca soccer training method for no cost whatsoever, $0. So you can book your free session right now with the promo code DH. That's your promo code, DH. Go to tocafootball.com/program/Toca-training, tocafootball.com/program/TOCA-training. Use your promo code DH or go to soccerdownhere.net. Click on the Toca Football banner and start your favorite player's game heading to the next level right then and there. SDH is also brought to you by Eliminize Services, QR code over my left shoulder for those of you watching on Twitch. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, Eliminize deodorizes enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pet cigarettes or food. Realtors and property managers use Eliminize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process. Makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers, kind to the environment, offering you a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue, different than our favorite masking agents that we have under the sink. It is a proven scientific formula to destroy odor down to the molecule. Pricing is easy, either by the cubic foot or parts per million, to make it just as economical for you as humanly possible. Offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any kind of question, frequently asked or otherwise, go to their website, eliminize.com/Atlanta. Put the /Atlanta part in there so they know what part of the world you are contacting them from. ELIMINIZE.com/Atlanta. Eliminize service for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Eliminize, proud sponsors of everything SDH.
Plenty of MLS stuff to get into with Niko Moreno coming up. I think you timed that pretty good, John. Good job.
Wow.
Pretty close. I mean, I don't know if you're 145 or 220 anymore, but you were somewhere within that 30, 40 second range. Some other stuff worldwide to get into before Niko joins us at 10:30, because we're going to revisit Toronto. We're going to talk about Miami. We're going to talk about Seattle. We're going to talk about Maxime Crépeau potentially on the move to LAFC. We'll get into all that with Niko. Some other stuff worldwide, and there's some big things going on. Ousmane Dembele has been a big part of the conversation with Barcelona, and it has kicked up a giant notch in the last couple of days. It was reported yesterday that he was omitted from the squad, traveling to Bilbao to face Athletic Club in Copa del Rey action today. That is 3:15 kick, I believe. Real Madrid plays at 1 o'clock in Copa del Rey. He wasn't going. It's like, okay, wow, this is kind of big. Xavi was quoted with saying some things like, basically, we need to know if you're in or you're out, because he's out of contract in the summer. Well, now Matteo Alemany and the club has put this out from some official places as well. He stated, and Alemany is the sporting director at Barcelona, Ousmane Dembele, quote, must immediately leave, unquote, after not accepting the renewal offers from the club. So to further clarify, because I don't think he's making him walk out the door right this second, it seems obvious to us that the player does not want to continue at Barcelona and is not committed to Barca's future project. In this scenario, he and his agents have been told that he must leave immediately. We have talked. We have open dialogue. Barca has made different offers. We have tried to find a way for the player to continue with us. Those offers have been systematically rejected by his agents. We want players committed to this project, and therefore we hope that a transfer will take place before January 31st. So he's been left out of the squad. Now, the players' union in Spain is not nearly the same level of power as it is in MLS, for example, but different things you're talking about. Barcelona have been warned over their potentially illegal treatment of Ousmane Dembele. They could be breaking the law by cutting Dembele out of their plans and treating him differently to the rest of their players simply because he does not want to sign a new contract. This is the quote from the players' union. A club is obliged to pay a player the agreed wages and allow the provision of services under the same conditions as the rest of his teammates without there being any type of discrimination or pressure for the athlete to waive their working rights. The renewal of a contract requires the agreement of both parties. Yeah, okay, fine, but he's not obligated to play either. Like, I don't think there's anything in a player's contract with a club that I am guaranteed to play 34 games of 38. No, because of injuries, because of loss of form, because of choices by the manager. So yes, you have to be careful. You make grandiose statements like this, you're painting yourself into a corner. I think they're completely and utterly fed up, and they're not going to get anything out of Dembele, so they're not really happy with it. Maybe should have taken a deep breath and walked away from the microphone. But not playing him and not taking him on these trips when he's not going to be there next year is not in any way breaking the law. If you're already moving ahead and looking ahead to the future, then that's what you're doing. So it's all bluster talk right now. But if you are any other club in the world and you are interested in signing Ousmane Dembele, well, get on the phone, because it probably won't take a whole lot for him to walk out the door right now. Now, are you going to get him for 6 months on a, basically run out his contract and then he's going to walk? Well, some clubs might be willing to do that. I'm talking to you, Newcastle. You guys can sign him too if you want to. I mean, you guys got the cash to do that if you want to, Newcastle. But at a minimum, if you get him for 6 months, well, he might win you a game or two with his ability. And, you could use those points. So supposedly Manchester United, Juventus, all the major clubs in the world are like, oh, antenna up. Dembele might be available today. Interesting. He's not going to be part of the squad today. Memphis Depay is out as well. Martin Braithwaite could get the medical green light for Barcelona today. This is a heavy cloud hanging over Barcelona, where they've got a bunch of clouds hanging over them. But this Dembele situation, the comments we've heard from the agents have been borderline ridiculous, expecting him to be paid like the best players in the world, where he has not played like the best players in the world. So they're not going to come to an agreement. I want to see what happens with him before January 31st. I don't think he's at Barcelona by the end of January 31st, but I have no idea where he is, and I have no idea if it's a long-term deal or if it's to ride out the contract.
His agents are going to try to get the long-term deal out of any kind of a suitor. But probably the best thing is to get that 6-month deal and sit there and say, well, tell you what, it's all right. You come in, you help us, in Newcastle's case, you help us stay in the Premier League. You get us out of this relegation fight, then we'll talk. And it's going to take that kind of listening from Dembele and his agents, I think, to get anything past that initial 6-month deal, unless someone is really confident that they can get the best out of Ousmane Dembele for whatever term they think that they'll get 6 months plus whatever.
I have far less faith in. Hold on. I have far less faith in intelligence from some of these clubs. I think somebody's going to go ahead and do a new deal with him now and probably go ahead and get him ahead of this and probably overpay. He does have talent. There's no question about it. It's just been wildly inconsistent, and he has had injuries to deal with. I don't think he's going to get what he is supposedly saying he wants, but if he's at a top club, maybe he takes a little bit less to get there. I don't know, but I swear if I'm Newcastle, I'm at least ringing up Barcelona and saying, look, we'll take him off your hands for right now. Here's a few million to bring him over, to get him out of your hair. We'll take it, and we'll talk to him and try to do a deal or whatever. You get him for 6 months. If that's all you get, that might be enough to keep Newcastle up. It's a little bit of a wild card, but we'll see what happens with it. He won't be there long term. There's just no way. Barcelona plays at 3:30 today. Sorry, I had the incorrect time. That is at Athletic Club, and Elche hosts Real Madrid. That is at 1 o'clock. Both of those are on ESPN Plus. Other games today coming up in less than an hour. You got the final games in Group E in the African Cup of Nations, and they are very intriguing, with Ivory Coast facing Algeria. Algeria has to win, has to get some help. I think if they win and they finish third, which is not 100% of a guarantee, they'll get through to the next round. If they don't win, they won't get through. They have to win, and that should be enough for them. The other game is Sierra Leone and Equatorial Guinea, and there's a great piece with Kai Kamara, former MLS striker, who's leading Sierra Leone. It's a huge opportunity for Sierra Leone to do something that they've never been able to do, get to this knockout round of the AFCON tournament. Equatorial Guinea is also a great story. That's going to be a great game alongside Ivory Coast and Algeria. You can watch those on your BN family of networks. I don't know which one is where, or if they've got them on separate channels. It's a little complicated because it's the last game of the group stage at the same time at 11. You'll definitely be able to watch them using the BN Sports Connect service that is on Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. If you're not already a subscriber, you can do a free trial there. Any signups benefit the show. We appreciate it. But you can watch those games. Might be in different languages. I've had the Arabic commentators, which has been very, very interesting. A lot of fun. But those should be available for you there, whether you have the BNs or not, or they separate them between the English and the Spanish BN, all that. 2 o'clock, Gambia and Tunisia, Mali and Mauritania. That is the last group stage games in the AFCON today. You got the Colombian League back underway this evening. Some of those games are going to be available on Fanatis as well. You do have this little thing, John, known as the Gummy Bear Cup. Arsenal hosting Liverpool. Second leg, scoreless after the first leg. Who goes through, Arsenal or Liverpool?
Liverpool.
You just hate Arsenal, don't you?
Yes, I absolutely hate Arsenal. I'm an anti-Gooner.
Why can't Arsenal win at home?
I just think that Liverpool always finds ways to win in these situations. I know that's a cliche, and I know it's a dollar in the jar.
I need more than that. You're not going to get away with that.
No, I think
no. I need more.
I'm developing that.
Oh, you don't have it. You're making it up, is what you're telling me.
Yes, I'm making it up as I
go.
Okay,
tell me why Liverpool will win.
I just think that in situations where you're chasing after hardware, I'm more comfortable looking at a Liverpool in these situations in second legs when you're trying to advance than I am with an Arsenal, even if it is at the Emirates. I'm just looking at their pedigree under Jurgen Klopp in competitions, and I'm more comfortable looking at a Liverpool in a must advance situation than I am with Mikel Arteta right now.
Okay, that's You hate Arsenal. It's okay. You can just say it that way. The odds makers do too. They have put Liverpool as a favorite here, plus 100. Arsenal is plus 250. The 90-minute draw is plus 275. These things are weird. I do like where Arsenal is going. I really do. I do have a lot of faith in Mikel Arteta, and I'm glad things are starting to head in the right direction for him. This is a big game for them. They're in an interesting spot because I don't think people were really high on Arsenal's chances to do well this year in general. I don't think there was a lot of expectation for them. They are currently 2 points out of a Champions League spot. They're in the semifinals of this competition. They are linked with some really big moves. So, I mean, this is a big time on and off the field for Arsenal. They're linked with Dusan Vlahovic, one of the top young players in the world. They're prepared to make him one of the highest paid players in the world. But according to all the reports, it's not so much Fiorentina that's the issue at this stage. It's Vlahovic being convinced of Arsenal. You win today and you go to a final of, it's the Gummy Bear Cup, but it's a final, and you are where you are in the league and you've been in Champions League spots this year. That might go some way in the convincing of a young, talented player to come play for you. You're also, if you're Arsenal, you're stepping up the pursuit according to goal.com to get Arthur Melo from Juventus. There's been talk about a player swap. There's been talk about if it's a purchase, if it's a loan. It looks like it's going to be a loan. They are trying to get that done. Those are two very big potential additions, and those are two potential additions for January. Vlahovic might take till the summer, but they're trying to get that done now. If Arsenal adds these two guys and gets to the final of the Gummy Bear Cup, we could be having a really interesting conversation about them by the end of the year. I think Mikel Arteta is developing really nicely as a manager. I think his progression and other guys like him show that hopefully in this crazy social media driven world we are in sometimes, that people will get time to grow. Because otherwise you're just going to be going through the same retreads that you're going to go through. And, you know, we're going to get to Everton here in a second when we talk about retreads and some of the people they've been linked to with managers. Arteta was not even a crazy hire to begin with. I mean, he was on Pep Guardiola's staff. That's pretty good. He's a pretty well-known guy. Like, he had good ideas about the game. Did he walk in and win everything straight away? No, I don't think anybody would have with the team he had. But he's showing the value of having a little bit of patience and having a plan. And now, if they can go and get these kinds of talents coming in, well, then, yeah, the expectation is going to be that he wins. Okay, that's fair. He's done a good job. Everton, I don't know what all they're doing here exactly. It's a little hard to follow because they're being linked with, I mean, it kind of feels like everybody under the sun. The Bobble on Twitter is now linking them to Frank Lampard, who has reportedly had a preliminary interview. Fabio Cannavaro, who is now available after leaving a Chinese Super League club. Both have had preliminary interviews with Everton. Wayne Rooney has not had any kind of an interview yet. There's other names still being discussed. We heard the comments about Jose Mourinho, although those were quickly swept under the rug. Mourinho said he didn't want to leave Roma at the stage. We've heard the conversation about Roberto Martinez and the exit clause that we all knew about. At least you guys who listen to this show have known about because we talked about it in terms of Barcelona. He's got a release clause in his contract with the Belgian Federation because, you know, they hired him to go to a World Cup. So they're not just going to let him walk for nothing. Duh. And I don't think you should pay a release clause to get him because I don't think he's demonstrably better than any of these other people we're talking about. So what is your sense of Everton? And I'm sure you probably have it easily dialed up. What are the odds makers in England saying about who the next Everton manager will be?
Well, I'll dial that up in just a second. But there was this talk of this unique deal that I think Martinez was credited for wanting. He wanted to do basically a job share where he was still in charge of the Belgian national team, but he could still work with Everton. And everybody's like, nah.
Oh, my days. Ha ha.
Yeah.
I think that was the official reaction to that idea.
Agreed. And if it's me, and of course, since I'm right there at the point of the spear when it comes to all decisions made in the Premier League,
No, you should be.
What I would do is I would just have Big Dunk in charge to the end of the year and then reassess.
Yeah, I said that from the beginning.
And you've seen in the past when Duncan Ferguson has been a caretaker manager that the team has had the response to him because he knows what it means to wear the Everton shirt. And I know that Ropes probably on the Twitch pitch can add to this as well. But when you have someone like that who understands it, who gets it, who just lives and breathes everything Everton, to have that kind of a presence when you're not that far out of a relegation scrap, which, it's a sentence I never thought that I would be having here, Everton and relegation scrap. But having someone like Big Dunk, I think, is that stabilizer that you can have to make sure that everything is leveled out by the end of this year, then figure it out. Don't rush into something because, if you're looking at Wayne Rooney as an idea, you don't know what's going to happen with Derby County. You don't want him, and what he's been doing at Derby County has been nothing short of amazing, considering all the constraints that he's had. He's in the middle of something. He's kind of busy. So anybody that I would look at, unless it's someone on the street, like a Lampard or a Cannavaro, wait till the end of the year, then figure it out, and then we'll go from there. Now I'm going to go look up and see what the odds are for folks with Everton.
Let's see what the odds are. Yeah, thank you. We'll see what the odds are. We'll talk about that here in a second. I do want to push back a little bit on the notion, and whether we're talking about Duncan Ferguson, whether we're talking about Frank Lampard, whether we're talking about Wayne Rooney, and there's all different things there. The idea that they're not ready, they have to get all this experience. No, they're not ready. I disagree with that mentality. You got to make the right hire, and it might be that they're not the right hire, and that's a very valid response to this because there's more to it than a level of experience. If it is only about guys who have a certain level of experience, you're going to just get retreads. That's all you're going to be able to get. And none of these up-and-coming guys are going to get a chance to learn. We've talked about it with Frank Lampard. I think he did a really good job in his full season at Chelsea. He got them into the Champions League that people, frankly, didn't expect him to do. And when they spent a boatload of money going into the next year, well, he struggled, and he's got things to learn. He's not going to be somebody who is Pep Guardiola tomorrow. Okay. Can he be good enough for Everton right now? Yeah, I think he is. I absolutely think he is. He's got to earn the job in the interview process. Fabio Cannavaro is an interesting one. I mean, I've seen people just dismiss that out of hand. Why? One of the smartest players that we've seen in the last few decades. He does have managerial experience. Is he the right guy? Well, he's got to convince Everton of that. But this magic number of years that it takes to be a good manager, I think that's an idea that's going to limit you, and it's going to generally point you to people who have been fired from other places. And that's not always the answer. I don't think Everton has to look at this, as Will is yelling about Sam Allardyce. I don't think Everton has to look at this like West Brom did when they brought in Big Sam and he took out his very well-traveled document of how to keep a team up that had like 3 things on it, and it didn't work this time. Now, it worked every other time. I don't think Everton's in that boat. I don't think they should be thinking like a hanger-on, just trying to stay above the water and not drown. I think they're going to be okay. They need to think a little bit bigger than that. And somebody like a Lampard, a Cannavaro, yes, a Rooney. Yes, absolutely a Rooney, because of what he's shown so far. And, while he has that, he maybe hasn't been there for as many continuous years as Big Dunk, he's going to be somebody who's going to motivate a young team to play well. I think he's done that at Derby to get what he's gotten there. Now, look, why is it just thrown out of hand that Ferguson doesn't get it? Give him the rest of the year. Let him show what he's got. He might be the guy. And that's okay, too. I don't think there's a need to just throw some experienced guy into this. I don't think that's necessarily the play here. Make the right hire. Who does Everton want to be over the next 5 years? What kind of team do they want? What kind of style of play do they want? What kind of game model do they want? Those are the questions that are going to decide this. And if that's the questions that Ferguson or Rooney or Cannavaro or Lampard or whoever else answer in the way that Everton wants to hear, that's who they should hire. Who do the odds makers say that they're going to hire?
All right. Now, this is courtesy of our friends at Sky Bet. There's like 15 that I'm staring at right now, but I'll go with Sky Bet just so we have them. Big Dunk right now is the leader in the clubhouse at 7-4. This is permanent manager. So this is permanent manager.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine.
Big Dunk is 7-4. He's leader. He's leader in the clubhouse. Then after that, you've got Wayne Rooney at 3-1, Lampard at 5-1, Jose at 9-1, which I'm not.
Don't waste your money on those, please. Oh. Please, degenerate people out there.
Cannavaro is a new entry, as right now he's only recognized by 2 of the 15 books that I have in front of me. Cannavaro's at 10.
Okay.
Roberto Martinez is at 10.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of Graham Potter and Nuno are at 16.
Graham Potter's the one that I'm wondering why it's gone a little quiet with him. I mean, he might not want to leave Brighton. Like he might be good where he's at, but he would be somebody that they should talk to for sure.
Lucien Favre he's a new entrant as well. He's
Always
only 2 of the books, and he's at 20.
Always comes up.
And then contributor Niles Notion. Paulo Fonseca's in at 22.
Yeah, and he's always coming up. And he's not getting it for some reason, and I don't understand why. The Roberto Martinez, Jose Mourinho, Lucien Favre group, and I'll put them all in a group together, although they're very different individuals. In my opinion, Everton should not open that door. When those guys show up at the door, banging on the door, talking about how many trophies they won and what they did and where they've been and how many years of experience and all this, I would be like, Jose, how many times have you been fired? Lucien Favre, what have you won? How many times have you been fired? Roberto Martinez, what have you done to earn this job outside of just working a lot? I don't think that's just the answer to just get some steady hand. Everton should aspire to be more. I hope they do. And maybe that is a Frank Lampard. Maybe that is a Wayne Rooney. Maybe it's a Duncan Ferguson. But I hope that they aspire to more and excite us with this hire rather than hire somebody who's been 50 million places and can basically do their own version of I've Been Everywhere by Johnny Cash. I hope. We'll see. Other stuff on the board before we get to Niko Moreno to jump back into the MLS front. Jamaica, no fans in the stands for their 2 World Cup qualifiers coming up over the next few weeks. No fans in the stands for Mexico on January 27th or Costa Rica February 2nd. It had been announced last year that Jamaica would have 5,000 vaccinated patrons allowed to watch the team in action. This has changed. They did have fans in the stands on a limited number November 16th in the 1-1 draw against the U.S. So no one in the stands for these games. And this is down to COVID situation. This has nothing to do with any FIFA punishment. Keylor Navas for Costa Rica has tested negative. He is rejoining PSG. He will be available for Costa Rica's upcoming World Cup qualifiers. That's on the CONCACAF front. The Borussia Dortmund conversation continues to get more fun. This is from AS, and it's via the Perform Wire service. Erling Haaland claimed that Dortmund had been pressuring him to make a decision on his next move. We heard his comments after their last match. after their last league match. They lost in the cup competition here, and maybe there's a little bit of a distraction going on. Just saying. Vatsky, their chief executive, he had some things to say. He's an interesting character. CEO Vatsky, by the way, very, very interesting. He probably should not answer interview requests. It's just a hunch, and maybe it's based on what he had to say about it. Maybe, possibly. I'm just saying he might need an assistant to say he's not available all the time, because he was asked about this. He insisted that the club has not made any ultimatum. He said some in the media write that BVB would give him an ultimatum, which is total bullish. Dortmund didn't put the gun on his chest. Wow. Bruh. Just shut up, man. Ask if Dortmund had been unsettled by Haaland's comments, Vatsky added. Erling was obviously a bit bothered by it, but we can't influence that. We told him that too. Bruh, just shut up. Just shut up, man. They might love him. That's fine, Coco. Yeah, he does have a very big mouth. He did not say bullish, Turner. He did not say bullish. But he said the other thing. He's not helping himself here. Haaland's gone anyway. It doesn't matter if he says all the sweet things in the media and all that. He's gone. We know that. But this stuff doesn't help. And you're going to get to a situation where agents hear their clients being talked about like this, and they're going to say, you know what? We can go somewhere else. We don't have to go to Dortmund. It's a bad look. Whether if the fans love him because he's so outspoken and wild and crazy and has a big mouth, and that's fine. I mean, okay. But it's not good for business when Mino Raiola put Erling Haaland at Dortmund. Yes, Dortmund won the sweepstakes and all that, but it put him there because it was a good place for him to develop. Well, when you leave and you're starting to get this sour taste, okay, good, Coco. I wanted to make sure I'm not following the Dortmund fan base. He's being a little sarcastic. If they love him or not, if the board loves him or not, they probably should tell him to shut up, and they should probably maybe not pay his phone bill so he can't use it and do these interviews and say these stupid things, because it's just not helping. He's leaving, but you're gonna, when you don't need to, you're gonna do damage to potential future deals, because people are gonna say, you know what, I'm not gonna send my client there, when he's gonna pop off at the mouth about the club didn't put a gun to his chest when the player is frustrated with the pressure that the club is putting on him to make a decision. Because I don't think Haaland made that up. He's not a generally hugely outspoken guy. He did that interview with somebody that he trusts after a game. I don't think he made it up. There's obviously been some pressure, because we've heard Dortmund's executives talk about it. How they want an answer. They want to know what's happening. They want to know what's going to happen. They want to know what Haaland wants. All these things. So just stop. Just stop, man. Just stop. You're ruining your potential deals. This isn't about Haaland. He's gone. But you're ruining the potential future things, because agents are not going to send people to you when you keep popping off like this, because there are other places that these players can be sent to where the executives maybe keep their mouth shut. In Italy, and Niko Moreno will be joining us here in just a minute. In Italy, we now have a new official COVID protocol. 9 players testing positive is the cutoff point for a quarantine. There is no vaccine mandate. That was a concern based off rules that the Italian government are putting in. That is not going to be part of it. It's not a huge issue in Italy, because 98% of players in October were fully vaccinated, and the players who are fully vaccinated are all doing their booster shots. So there's a small number of players who are unvaccinated in Italy, but 9 out of the 25-man Serie A squad. Serie A squads are limited to 25. 9 test positive. That's the cutoff point for a quarantine and a postponement. That's it. That's where the local health authorities can intervene. If it's under that number, they can't intervene now, according to this agreement with Serie A, with the government, with everybody involved. So we have a little more clarification now. Well, that's going to get tested straight away. Venezia, 10 more COVID cases emerged during the last round of swab tests. 14 first-team members positive. Now, the question, and it's just a little vague, is 14 first-team members positive. Are those players? Are those staff members? What is the breakup of it? Because if it's 9 players, the request to delay the game can be activated. If it's not, it doesn't. It's really that simple when it comes down to it now in Italy. 9 out of 25. And yeah, just in case there's any questions, you have a 25-man Serie A squad, but you can bring up players from your junior teams, your academy and all that to supplement it. You're not limited to only 25 men, period. That's all you can have. And if you don't have them, oh well. That's where things stand in Italy. If you didn't see it yesterday, Atletico Madrid's team bus was attacked by fans of Real Sociedad on their arrival for their Copa del Rey matchup. 2 windows were smashed. Objects were thrown at the bus, surrounded by a large group of fans outside the stadium before police could get in there to intervene. No injuries. Atleti lost in the match 2-0. Video footage of this showed Diego Simeone standing at the front of the bus, according to some reports, appearing to remonstrate with fans and police. I think he was yelling his head off at these people, maybe threatening to come out of the bus and talk to some folks or do other things. But that's not really the good way to prepare for a match. And Atleti didn't look good. And now the drum beat's getting louder about El Cholo. Is he going to be at Atleti going forward? I think it's probably time. I wish he had walked at the end of their last title win. But I think it's probably time. If you have a chance to see the reaction to the mistake that was made, I mean, he looks like he's almost like in tears watching his team make mistakes and drop games. He's been a legend there, and I hope he gets to go out in the right way. But it's not looking good right now for Atleti and Simeone's future.
Yeah, it's not looking good. I'm with you. I wish that he had gone out on top. And we've seen it in other sports with our favorite teams or teams that we pay attention to where the coach there's an exit point, there's an easy exit point, and the coach stays past that exit point, and there's no way to get back to where it was, and it's just downhill in quotation marks from there. And what Simeone has done at Atleti has been absolutely amazing and very cool to see. But yeah, I think it's time at the end of the year.
Yeah. Couple last things. I don't want to make the Spurs fans upset. That was an insane comeback for Spurs yesterday. One element of it, I mean, everybody's talked about it. You guys know what happened with Steven Bergwijn with the winner super late to win that match. But watch the video of Bergwijn running to celebrate where you see, and I can't remember who it is who grabbed him. He had a yellow card already. If he had ran and jumped into the stands, he would have gotten into second yellow. He would have been red carded. He would have missed the next game. He was being grabbed by one of his teammates by the shirt to not get away from him and run over there. That kept him available for the next match. That's incredible. Like in that moment where everybody's losing their mind to have that happen, to somebody to be thinking clearly, like, no, we need you next time. We need you. One other one, and this is probably going to get a lot of storylines before we jump back into MLS, but it's still in the early days of it. The FA is examining a yellow card received by an Arsenal player linked to suspicious betting patterns during a Premier League match this season. ESPN has the article with more detail on it. Bookmakers have alerted the FA to unusual amounts of money being staked on a member of Mikel Arteta's team to be booked. The FA is looking into it. That's a weird one, but keep an eye on what could come from that. ESPN's got more detail on that one. Dig into that. Also, as we talked about earlier at the beginning of the show, dig into the articles that Yahoo on their finance side and ESPN have about what's going on in Brazil with new investment and new ownership and some of the changes that are happening there. And I do think there could be some more opportunities for MLS to do more business down in Brazil on this. All right. Speaking of MLS, we've got one of our favorite guests to join us right now, our good friend out of Seattle with the super large coffee, I'm sure, this morning. Niko Moreno joining us. What's up, Niko?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? Regular size today, regular cup.
okay.
Nice little 12 ounce.
Okay.
We're having a decent morning today. Got some good sleep. Got to bed early last night.
Good for you. I did too. I got enough of it and you would have got it later than me because of the time zones. The craziness with Toronto that kept bubbling up last night with like move after move and rumor after rumor. Delgado going to the LA Galaxy. Kamar Lawrence reportedly on his way out. Io Akinola, now it's official. He signed a new deal. Pozuelo linked to Wuhan in the Chinese Super League. I mean, it's what in the blue hell is going on in Toronto, Niko?
That's what happens when you get you could call him, a big time coach, someone who has a certain way about soccer that is clearly a student of the game and has a vision. And I'm sure that before he signed to Toronto, he had a list of this is what stays, this is what goes. And now it just becomes a hot sale and, come and get it while it's hot. And that's what they're doing, right? Pozuelo, regardless of him being a very good player, perhaps he's just not someone that Bob Bradley feels like he fits into his system. And not just that, but perhaps he could do something else with that money or that DP spot, right? You have the opportunity to really take advantage of bringing in a guy like Insigne. So you don't want to waste any time. So does he feel like perhaps with a better winger, on the other end, or, with a better 9? I mean, it just goes to say that Bob Bradley is just trying to shake things up and probably put the best team together to best fit his new historic signing. So not surprising. Kamar Lawrence is a guy who, I thought, should stay and would stay. Akindola, young guy. Also, we saw a lot of promise from him, back in the MLS is Back tournament, and that's kind of when he broke out and you started to keep an eye on him, and has not lived up to that expectation. So now perhaps with someone like Bob could begin to blossom into that forward that you once saw.
So, and this is a question that Jason posed, and I want to ask it to you. It's like, do you think Toronto makes the playoffs, considering where they were last year, chasing after wooden spoon, with all of the things that are happening, Insigne coming in the summer and working their way to the end? I thought that because of Insigne coming in the summer, they would make a late push, get into the playoffs. Does Toronto, with all the work that they're doing, do they make the playoffs? And then because of that, you got to pull somebody out. Who doesn't?
Oof, that's a tough one, man. You think bringing in a guy of that magnitude kind of obligates you to make a playoff spot, but honestly, I'm always thinking about chemistry, continuity, understanding of a coach's philosophy. You hear me talk about identity every day. Every time that I'm on here, I just think it's going to take some time. I really do, and I just don't know if they have quite enough just out of raw talent to just immediately become a playoff team. So I'm going to say no. I'm really going to say no. And if we're talking about a guy going out, I do think he would be Pozuelo. I think he's the guy who you just feel like if I'm trying to recreate something different and I'm trying to amplify the most expensive player and the biggest news of 2022, I need to go and get something else. And Pozuelo perhaps as well, being the man for as long as he has. I've had the ability to talk to him quite a few times, and he is always been that guy that it's my team. It's I'm the guy that runs it. Is he feeling some sort of way by Insigne coming in? So yeah, if I was a betting man and I had to put money on it, it would be Pozuelo, the guy who goes.
Yeah, I mean, you got to open up the other designated player spot if they're going to add a Belotti or somebody else. This isn't even the Josie spot because you got to open up the Josie spot to add Insigne.
That's a good
And
call.
all the talk is Soteldo straight up for Salcedo, who would be a designated player. So that doesn't open up a spot. So, I mean, that's where you're stuck. Like, I'm with you. I don't think Toronto makes the playoffs. I think it's going to be at least a 2-year process for
And that's
Bob
what
Bradley.
thing is so weird to me, man. It's so odd. It's so. I told you guys last time that when I made a call down south, it seemed like it wasn't going to happen. Clearly, it is. Clearly, it was still in the early stages. Because talking about a straight trade is something that we haven't quite seen. I mean, that's
I can't think of one between an MLS team and a team outside the league straight up. Like, I can't even think of a player swap with cash going different ways with MLS.
It barely happens in the NFL, fellas. I mean, we're talking Champ Bailey for what was it, Portis? I mean, I don't know. I just,
good shout on Champ.
Nicely.
Good shout. I got my Georgia gear on today, so good shout
nice.
Bringing up Champ Bailey.
Congrats.
I appreciate it.
Very nice, very nice. And yeah, so that's what I'm saying, right? You've never seen that. And look, I'm gonna be the first one to tell you that I don't know if Salcedo is the guy that, as a DP center back, is gonna come and just change your defensive abilities. I mean, look, this guy's good. I'm not saying he's not, but I don't know if he's that guy that's going to lead your team. I think that he's had some irregularities over the last couple of years. It doesn't make any sense to me that he's going to come in and be a DP for this Toronto team. Look, I know Bob hasn't had great defensive teams, but I just think he's putting a lot of eggs in a basket that I think has a substantial hole, and I don't think he's going to get what he wants out of that.
Yeah, I mean, I just look at a lineup with Toronto that right now, if the Kamar Lawrence rumor is true that he's out, it's looking like either Bono or Westberg in goal. It's Luca Petrasso, a youngster from their academy, as the left back, Auro on the right side, Mavinga, and if the Salcedo move happens, the two of them as your center backs. A midfield, if Delgado leaves, with Bradley and Ralph Priso and Jonathan Osorio is my guess. And Soteldo's gone, then I don't know what you have on the wing, frankly. Jacob Schaffelberg or Jaden Nelson, Jaquil Marshall-Rudy, and then eventually Insigne up top, but you have Akinola. Insigne will be out in the wing when he gets here. Like, that's not a playoff team. I'm sorry, man. It's not a playoff team.
They're clearing house, man. I mean, that's what it is, and that's why it's so hard regardless of who's coming in, in the summer. It could be messy, and it would still be difficult for me to be like, yeah, it's for sure going to happen, because that supporting cast there's just so many question marks, and you still got to hope that they have some chemistry and the egos don't go along. And I mean, there's just so many things. Bob, I'm sure, talked to the front office and said, look, man, I'm going to need my 3 years. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tear it down, build it back up, and give you something great. And I'm sure they signed off on that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they know that it's going to take a minute. And you're not getting Insigne into the summer anyway. And there have been some questions, just to clarify. He's not on the roster until he arrives, until July. So he's not on the roster in this window now because he's not part of the team. So you don't have to have that designated player spot open until the summer, but it's coming. So that's a kind of hard dance to walk with if you don't have it open to start the season, because then you're going to have to move somebody later. We'll see how that goes down.
They're playing it to the limit, baby. They're playing it to the limit.
They are. And look, more teams are going to do that. And I've seen, conversations about, like Atlanta, and you start projecting things out about what move could happen here and what this might happen here and this might happen here. So you got to have the spot open. I think you're seeing more teams now with more involvement in the global market of, we're going to push it to the limit. We're going to have every spot filled up, and we know what we might need to open up later. And if we do, then we'll push the button then and we'll make the move. I think Toronto's going to do that. I think other teams are going to do that. I want to get into LAFC because this is a move we haven't talked about yet this morning. The rumors that are getting pretty loud about Maxime Crépeau going from Vancouver to LAFC. I think the Vancouver side of it is pretty easy. That was a pretty interesting team last year. And they've got continuity going forward. They also have a young goalkeeper in Thomas Hassall, who is behind Crépeau, who I'm guessing they feel is ready to take the job. And why would they trade a great goalkeeper like Crépeau? I think he's one of the best in the league. $1 million in allocation money can go a long way to filling in any other holes that Vancouver has. So from a Vancouver perspective, and everybody's been like, I think the general consensus has been, oh, this is crazy for Vancouver to do. Depends on what they do with that $1 million, in my opinion. If they get better through this, which they absolutely can, Vancouver might be a little bit higher up that Western Conference table than we think.
Yeah, absolutely. And, whenever you have a very good 27-year-old keeper that has promise and has, it is not just has promise for a couple of years, but has been proven to be as good as he has, he can make people think twice. But I mean, you just basically hit it right on. You get $1 million that you could put elsewhere, and if your coaching staff is high on a goalkeeper, a young goalkeeper, then you go ahead and make that move. And we've seen that happen in other teams. And if it goes your way, you're adding a similar goalkeeper that's costing you a lot less, and you're getting a substantial amount of money that I can go put into my central midfield, which I think is one of Vancouver's weaknesses, or if not, where they could improve on, and I become a better team, right? You have two very good, exciting players like Davier and Dahomey, and you made such a good run at the end of last season, and you feel like you could have perhaps gotten farther than you did in the playoffs. And, this is just a team that I think has a lot of potential, and that's why I don't mind this move. If that $1 million and moving that goalkeeper can amplify what you're already doing well and what you did good last season, I think offensively, since Dos Santos was there, guys, and you guys know I was big on Vancouver and what they could potentially do, I just think it's there. So more power to them. I don't want to minimize the importance of a good goalkeeper, but I do know that if a team is willing to part ways with a goalkeeper, they have something else in the back. They're not going to, they're going to know that this guy coming in has at least similar abilities to just get me through. So I have no doubt that that's what's going on in Vancouver right now. I like the move. And, for LAFC, that's what makes sense. That's been a huge void for LAFC. They've had no continuity, no luck when it's come to those goalkeepers. So now you get a guy that's done it against Cascadia, which is mainly your main rivals, with Sounders and Timbers. So why not?
Yeah, now you're getting into a situation with LAFC where, and we've wondered what they would look like. There's still questions. Brian Rodriguez to Internacional still seems to be a thing, possibly. It looks like Carlos Vela is all good. They're taking pictures, they're putting those out there, so I guess he's happy. I don't know what combination the back line is, but at least they've got a lot of different options, and good options, too. If they go into it with a lineup, we talked about Toronto's feeling like it's underwhelming. If LAFC goes into the season with a lineup of Crépeau in goal, Diego Palacios on the left, Franco Escobar on the right, Eddie Segura, probably Mamadou Fall with what he showed us in the second half of last year, but it could be Jesus Murillo at center back. It could be Escobar at center back and Kim Moon-Wan at right back. You got a bunch of options. Midfield of Ilie, of Kellen Acosta, of Jose Cifuentes, Vela, Rodriguez, and Arango as your front three. That's a playoff team, no question. Is it an MLS Cup contender? It's close.
Yeah, probably not. Definitely a playoff team. I'm not huge on Acosta. I'm gonna be quite frank.
I think he's good, but I don't know if he's that high. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, I think he's a good, solid piece. I think it's a good get. I think Ilie is a good get, but are they better there than they used to be in the midfield? I don't know.
That's exactly it. If you ask me to pick between Edward Atuesta and all these guys, I'm going to take Atuesta every day, and on Sundays as well. So it's just are you really getting any better? And I really hope they don't let go of Brian Rodriguez. I think he's somebody that's going to give them a lot of that, not just ability to get to the end line and someone who could take on defenders, but someone who's a goal scorer who could really finish. And that's something they're really going to need. Arango, right? You know what he brought last season. Can he replicate it? Can he continue to be on his way? I think so. I'm high on the guy. National team, consideration already. He's done it. Everything I hear from him on and off the field is good. When it comes to training, a guy that's there early, that's working hard. So yeah, man, I think they're an interesting team. I do know that Murillo has a lot of interest out broad. So that,
that's okay.
Can you move that piece because you have some depth in a sense at center back, and then maybe go ahead and get another player to make you even better, right? So I like Sifu. He's a guy that I thought was underused sometimes. I like where Bob put him last season as a 10. I don't know what Chirulunda's going to do because I don't think anyone does. But I think he's a very versatile player that could, play out wide. He could play centrally. He's someone that's good on both sides of the ball. So there's a lot of talent. And, we talked about this, guys. When you look at the roster, there's a lot of promise there. But can your head coach put in a system in place that's going to get the best out of each player and let it be a cohesive unit? That's what we'll have to wait and see.
All right, Niko, let me go up the coast for my next question. Let's go to San Jose. And Matias Almeida was recently on an Argentinian talk show with the Martin Arevalo. And here's the quote. I'm on a club that only invests the budget received by the league. 7 or 8 players left, and we added 2 until now. But this is making me better. I'm finding new ideas. I'm learning. The clause on my contract expired. This is my last year. That's the end of the quote. Does Matias Almeida even make it to the end of the season? Is he number 1 on your hot seat list?
He is been number 1 in my hot seat ever since a couple of our guys left that seat. He definitely, not just because of the lack of results, but another component to this is that he is a very marketable guy. He's someone who a lot of teams want to get from national team perspective to club level. A lot of people want Almeida because of who he is and probably it's a fair assessment that he got put into a situation that was very difficult, right? Because you knew that San Jose was a team that has a short budget, that, they have a pretty tight checkbook. And honestly, he hasn't really had amazing players. It sounds like he's had the ability to bring some players like Alanis and La Chofis and, all of these players that he's seen, he's worked with. But he's not getting those blockbuster deals. He's not getting anybody that he can really, depend on, right? So because of that, and now him really exposing and basically talking mess about his front office, and probably deservedly so.
Yeah.
But with that in mind, if I'm a front office guy, I gotta start looking for a replacement ASAP. This guy isn't happy. He's already saying he's got 1 year. He's not committed to my program. Is he really gonna work hard into making it to the playoffs? Is he building a roster? I mean, all of those things right now have to be going through the front office's mind, and it could just be a win-win where you just split ways. That famous term, parted ways on both ends. They came to a conclusion or whatever. That's what you could potentially see out of San Jose, man. But I think he's a guy that we might see elsewhere even before the season ends.
Yeah, I think you get to the summer and probably a team in Mexico has an opening and comes in and they agree to part ways, because I don't see any way San Jose is competing at any kind of a real level by the time you get to the summer. It's just they don't have enough talent. He's done everything he can do. I think he's done, in general, pretty well with what he's had to work with. I don't think he's failed them. I just think he has a whole lot less talent and he can only go so far. But yeah, I think he's the first one out. I don't think it's necessarily getting fired. I wouldn't call it a normal hot seat. I could see them shaking hands and walking away from one another by the time we get to the summer. I think he'll be back in Mexico.
Yeah, it's odd. I mean, he gave you flair. He gave you a little bit of.
Yeah.
He showed you things since his arrival, right? They were a high pressing team, and they kind of went on a run, but then they just didn't have enough. There were this fixed up street racer in a NASCAR race. He did what he could, and he just could never just follow along. So you can't really blame him all that much, because once again, if you compared him to everything around him, from LA Galaxy to LAFC to up north with, Cascadia, I mean, man, that guy was just outgunned.
Yeah, he just didn't have enough resources. We got a little bit of this for our next topic. So, Tommy Scoops, Tom Bogert has posted an update on Paul Arriola, and DC and Club America have not reached an agreement after another bid. I think it was bid number 4 from Club America. They have not reached an agreement. Bogert says that could be it for negotiations between the two clubs. There is obviously the conversation about $2 million in GAM from Charlotte or Dallas, and both seem to be chasing it. The Charlotte one, I don't even want to get into it. We can maybe at the end about just the idea of like trading guys within the league versus selling outside. I think that's kind of obvious the way the rules work with adding more cap space. It's sometimes smarter to trade within the league, but Charlotte obviously makes a ton of sense here. They need designated players. They need guys who are impact guys. Arriola's an impact guy. He's on the wing. He fits, I think, a lot of what Miguel Angel Ramirez would want to do. Dallas is a little bit of a surprise being in the market for Arriola, and Dallas is maybe shaking things up a bit with their new coach, Nico Estevez, and chasing after Alan Velasco at Independiente, which is a whole nother kettle of fish. Where do you think Arriola ends up to start things off? It doesn't seem like he's going to be in DC this year.
No, that's certain. I think they're shopping him around, and honestly, I don't know if they're trying to get too much for him. Look, no disrespect to Arriola, but between injuries and perhaps situations where he hasn't really had a good supporting cast, it's been a while since he's been a guy that's a difference maker. And I don't know if I would call him somebody that's just, I'm going to be able to put my team on his shoulders. So I don't know.
I wonder this, Nico. I wonder if their conversations with Club America changed after they were offered $2 million in GAM in the league. I wonder if they had a price in general, and then, all right, if we can get $2 million in cap space, we're going to need 5 to trade him outside there, to sell him outside the league, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense to do it. I wonder if the game changed in the midst of the conversation.
I totally agree. I think that's exactly what happened. And you saw it happen with Kellen Acosta, whether there were offers or not for him outside of the United States.
Yeah.
The more
Colorado
possible,
denied that actually yesterday. If people missed that, their GM, Patrick Smith, came out and said, no, there were no offers for Kellen Acosta. The first offer came in after an agreement was done with LA.
Exactly. But even if that was the case, you would think that they would get more in resource within an internal domestic trade than anything else, right? So that's what I see here as well. I think that coming from Charlotte and coming even from Dallas, you're going to be able to get a lot more to use immediately than you would out of anything coming out of Mexico. So that's why I think he will be here. I'm going to say Charlotte is probably the best scenario for both Arriola and DC United, because that's where you're going to get most of your money. Arriola is going to be able to come in, kind of just, weight off his back, and he's going to be the guy there and just going to be able to shine. There's not a lot of expectation because it's a new team, expansion team. So whatever you do just helps out. Because of that, I think that's where Paul Arriola is going to end up. And I'm following up on it. I'm definitely on it, and we'll see what happens. I mean, Tommy Scoops is, probably has a wider net and range than I do, but I got my contacts, so we'll definitely be on it and see what we can find out. But yes, Paul Arriola, I think will make a whole lot of sense for Charlotte.
and he gives you that marquee guy that you can send through the car wash and make all those public appearances, do all the morning show interviews, be on the billboard. He can be that face that you're looking for this launch if you end up sending him to Charlotte.
No, absolutely. And he's a guy that's relevant, not just here, but, national team guy, someone who is a veteran of the league and knows what to say, what not to say. Yeah, I think he is someone that you could really market as the guy down there, because they have a lot of promise. They have a lot of good players. They really have signed some very talented players, but are they known as Paul Arriola? Probably not. So he is someone that you could definitely put on. He's played with Jordi Reyna as well, knows him well. Jordi is a guy that, is going to be your creator, probably has a good chemistry with him. So there's just a lot of things that make sense for a move from him to Charlotte.
How are you feeling about Charlotte now? And I've really questioned their roster build. I feel like they're behind. But if they get Arriola with Jordi Reyna, with Christian Ortiz, who's now official coming in from Xolos, that's okay. I got to worry a little bit about that front three. If that's the front three, that's decent. That's okay.
Yeah, I think they're a piece away. So that's exactly why they probably wouldn't mind spending those $2 million and bringing in a guy like that, because he's going to give you that ability. And although I have my doubts, as I just said it, when it comes to durability and, 100%. Certain way productivity to a certain extent, at least he provides you the possibility to be this big three right up top. And when you look around the league, that's probably your best bet at the moment. It's immediate. There's no learning curve to MLS. So, yeah, you could bring him and play him. So, yes, I think with that acquisition, Charlotte would be a competitive team. I still think they might be. I like Angel. I think he's a good coach. I think that he's put together a decent roster. I have been in the past a little bit too high on guys coming into the league. So if those guys don't perform the way I think they will, they might struggle a little bit. But hey, they're not going to be Cincinnati.
Right.
At the very least, you'll have Cincinnati to just say you were better than.
They'll be more like Austin in my mind, where I think they'll be competent. They just might not be quite good enough in terms of quality, but I think they'll be like well coached and they won't be a disaster train wreck kind of situation.
Yeah, mid of the standings type of team throughout the season.
I think right now they're probably middle of the teams that miss the playoffs is kind of where I'm at. I think they're in that second tier, but they've got room to work with. They've got designated player spots. They probably are not going to make their big move until the summer, would be my guess, and they'll know exactly what they need by that point. So I'm intrigued. I feel better about Charlotte than I have with these kind of moves. If they get Arriola, if they don't, then they still got a hole that they got to fill to get to that decent level, I think.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you about a guy that Miami has added, Emerson Rodriguez from Millonarios, deal that had been rumored for a little bit. It's part of the U22 initiative. 21 years old, 55 appearances across all competitions for Millonarios, including Sudamericana. What do you think about what Miami's done?
It's a great signing, man. And unfortunately, I had it in the in the casket. I mean, I had it right here in my hands. I told you guys about it. That I was teasing it. I really thought I was the only guy with the information. Clearly, I wasn't. Pipe Serna was one of the Sierra was one of the first guys to put it out, and they beat me to it. I love to give credit. I'm not that guy that's not going to provide guys credit, and therefore I did. But he's a good guy. He's talented. He's very promising. He's someone that could become Inter Miami's Diego Rossi type player, right? He could be a game changer. He could, play out in the wing. He can break inside, score a lot of goals. He's extremely fast. He's someone that I know Chris Henderson was following on. And when you add a guy like Leonardo Campana, who I'm also big on, that they brought in, also someone who Chris Henderson has had on his list since he was in Seattle. He's been following this guy for a while. I just think he makes a ton of sense. The rumored amount seem a little bit high. Because he reminds me a little bit of Santiago Mosquera when he came to Dallas.
Okay.
There was a lot of promise out of Millonarios. He was doing very well. There were questions about, is he too young to make the move? And there were pissed off fans, and similar situation here. So as long as the learning curve is not too high for him, and I think with Chris Henderson rebuilding this team, he could potentially have a better supporting cast around him. I think he'll do well. But very good player, very good signing, especially for a guy that's going to come in and you could potentially sell him in the future if he does well. But I think it was a great signing. Everybody in Millonarios who I talked to is high on him. He's somebody who's in the bubble for national team opportunities as well. So yeah, he's just a good signing overall.
And you're seeing Chris Henderson getting the purge done his way, and you're seeing a lot of things done. And right now, I think it's amazing to see what Henderson has been able to do to get things moving, to get rid of all of the old money, for lack of a better word, when it comes to all of the older players, all of the money that was put out there. You're not going to have Blaise Matuidi to worry about anymore. All of that old money that was put in to bring in talent that you thought was going to be the way. Chris Henderson has been successfully purging all of that stuff, and he's done it pretty quickly. So he definitely gets a tip of the hat for purging as quickly as he has.
Yeah, he's done it in a hurry, and I think a lot quicker than I thought he would. And it's just funny because knowing him the way I do and following him for as long as I have, as soon as things started happening, you didn't even have to tell me who was making those decisions, because you could see it was him pulling the strings, man. And deservingly so. This should have been done this since he arrived. The moment he touched in Inter Miami, they should have given him the keys to the car, and you wouldn't be in the problems that you were in the past. I still don't love the coaching there. I wish they would make a change there as well. But at least when it comes to roster and what you see out of the future of this team, it just changes. All those mistakes, all those awful, atrocious, ignorant, ill-advised decisions that they made, and my goodness, I cannot hit them hard enough because of how much money they spent and the time that they wasted. Yes, Chris Henderson is their salvation, and he's starting to do it.
I'll disagree with you on Phil Neville. I think he's going to end up coming good. I think he's a good coach. The personality part, is it the right fit for the team that they're going to build? Now that's a valid question. I think he's going to do a pretty good job. I was impressed with him last year. Now he's got, I think, a coherent group to work with, and we'll see. I think a younger group will suit him as well. I think he'll be able to work with them a little bit better. And
a more cohesive team. I mean, they just had all of these different components that you didn't feel like they matched. Like, they had a door of a Lamborghini, and they had, the engine of Mazda. And I mean, it was just all wrong put together. So now, can he do better? Perhaps. Once again, we're going to have to disagree on that. The personality part, the theory part, I'm not with it. So we'll see how it works. We'll see how it pans out. But it'll be interesting for sure. He definitely has the ability to have a better team, to perhaps execute his game plan in a better fashion.
Yeah. We'll compare notes on Phil Neville as we go. One other player from Colombia who is being linked, and look, maybe he's the backup plan for Dallas if they don't get Paul Arriola. A player who was in the spotlight this week, if you watched the Milan Spezia game, Kevin Agudelo, 23 years old. He is from Colombia originally. He has been with Spezia here, had some injuries early this season. He's kind of been a super sub for them right now, and he came in and changed the game against Milan. Reports out of Italy have Dallas linked with Kevin Agudelo. I don't know him all that well, but what I saw from him and in doing a little bit more research this week, that would be one of those under the radar signings that could be huge. I mean, he's got more upside than Arriola, in my opinion.
Oh, well, yeah, that's for sure. And I mean, he's a young guy that I don't know if he has filled expectations.
Yeah.
He is someone who is he'd be a gamble. And I really don't know if he's willing to make that gamble either.
Right.
When I heard those rumors, that was the first thing that I thought. His camp was pretty eminent about him staying in Europe. So I was thinking perhaps a lower division Spaniard team, because when camps get around these guys, what they're looking for is just to keep the guys closer to where the big money is, because they're living off of transfer fees and things like that. Yep. Very talented guy, but I don't see the Dallas move all that much. I could see Dallas being interested. They've had huge influence with guys close to this specific group. Okay. So, yes, it makes a ton of sense. Maybe there's a lot of interest, but I would be surprised if we see him in MLS.
Okay. It gets interesting with guys like this. And I think there's a lot of guys across a different kind of players. I'm going to ask you about one more here in just a second who's not coming to MLS, but some of the other rumors, I want to get into it with you for a minute. I want to get your opinion on it. I think with guys like Agudelo, hasn't realized the potential yet. He's 23, so there's still like time coming. But I understand what you're saying in that he's been in Europe for a minute now. I think people expected him to break out by now. Would it be seen as a big regression to come to Dallas rather than stay at Spezia? That's an interesting discussion in and of itself. And I think where MLS is kind of getting to, you're going to see some guys make that decision to say, hey, it's not a regression. I can get paid well. I can come here. I can be in the spotlight and go back. You're going to see others say, no, I don't want to go. A lot of it's down to the agents and the representatives. I want to get into a movie. He's not coming to MLS. He wasn't ever linked. Dario Benedetto. Marseille player, was on loan to Elche. He's going back to Boca. He was sold by Boca to Marseille for like $15 million in 2019. He's going to go back to Boca for pennies, 3 or 4, it looks like, something like that. When you're seeing MLS teams linked with Polish forwards, with Greek forwards, why? And maybe they are, and it's just not getting out. Why would teams not be after a 31-year-old Benedetto who is not going to stay in Europe? That ship had sailed. It was obvious. He's going to go back to Boca, where he's a legend. He scored 40 goals in 70 games. Like, they love him. If you're looking for an impact forward in this league, why would you not be trying to get Dario Benedetto instead of a guy from Greece or Poland or wherever?
No, he's an interesting guy, and he's had a successful career everywhere he's been, including Liga MX. He's somebody that could help you build play. He has a fantastic foot when it comes to mid-range shots and set pieces, and he's a very good guy. At 31 years old, I would be after him, right? I mean, at least to get him on a couple of year deal and see where that plays off. When you do see teams sometimes bringing in guys that are probably not as known or familiar with the game or this proximity, it does make you wonder. And I know he's been looked at by several MLS teams before his Marseille move, but that's a while back, right?
Yeah, and then when you're talking 15 million and something, then that's a little bit harder sell too. I get that.
Absolutely, but when I look at a team like Chicago, why not? Why not bring a guy like that? That is a big face that you can sell. He's marketable, coming from Marseille, coming from Europe. He's this legendary Argentine player and who could really produce for you. Yes. Why not? Right now we're looking at a Shabilko. That's what you're kind of going after, right? Yeah. So is it a guy that you could bring in and he's going to produce? Perhaps, but go ahead and go get a guy like this that he could be your go-to guy and maybe work with Shabilko. I don't know. So Ezra Henderson, the reason why I bring him up on Chicago is because I'm sure he was here when the Sounders were looking at Benedetto at some point when they were looking at the Raul Ruiz move. He was one of those guys in the conversation. So if Ezra was in that same war room, you'd think he'd have some sort of knowledge on Benedetto. So a guy like that, I would bring in immediately.
Yeah, when I saw the talk with him going back to Boca, didn't hear anything from MLS at that point. I'm like, feels like a miss. Feels like a real miss when you could get somebody for a reasonable amount of money. And I think you'd get a ton of goals out of him in this league.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Interesting one. All right, Niko, we could keep you all day. We're not. You've got other people to call. You got other things to do. What are you working on over the next week that we need to be paying attention to you for?
All right. Well, over the next week, we are starting off our daily looks at the Sounders. There's a lot of things coming up. I expect Nicolas Odero, Yemer Gomez-Andrade, and Javier Arriaga to come in this week. So I think Friday, I'm pretty sure we'll see them at the training field, and I'm hoping to get availability with either three of those guys. All different and interesting stories. Nicolas Odero, what his future is going to look like here. How's he doing health-wise? Javier Arriaga, international play, and a new extension through 2024 that I broke yesterday, I believe, or a couple of days ago. Now I don't remember anymore, but so many stories I've broken. I really remember. But Javier Arriaga 2024 is a big deal for him, for the team. I think is a good, solid move. And Yemer Gomez-Andrade, your best defender, second in the voting for MLS Defender of the Year last season, coming off of a very interesting friendly with Colombia. So definitely look for those. And next week, for the first time ever, I'm going to be doing a full English MLS preview. So wait on the date, but I'm going to have a couple of guys from different places and more than likely Felipe Cardenas and John Rojas and maybe Andrew Wiebe, a couple of guys that you're going to be able to recognize there. And it should be fun.
Very cool. I got one to leave you with. Taylor Twellman hitting the air horn. Arsenal have put in a strong bid for Matt Turner from the New England Revolution today, according to Taylor Twellman. And look, Taylor doesn't always break news, but when he tweets something like this, he knows something. So Matt Turner potentially to Arsenal.
Wow. That's very interesting. And I don't even know what to say. I believe him. I mean, he has such influence. If he's putting something out there, it's not because he just decided to go out there and say it. But is Matt Turner ready for EPL, man? I mean, I don't know.
Whew.
And Arsenal, man, that's a lot of weight on your back. I mean, just ask Zach Steffen, what it's like to play in the EPL, right? And he was a promising guy, younger, with what you would think was a bigger future. No knock on Matt. I mean, I think he was great, but man, that's a lot.
Yeah, he won't go over there to start. And then, I mean, if you're Greg Berhalter, he might have started throwing things when Taylor tweeted, because then you got your top two keepers potentially sitting on the bench in England. That's not a good situation for the national team.
Nope.
I get it from Matt. I mean, if you get that offer and you're going to get paid, and I get it, I understand. But from Greg Berhalter's perspective, because we've talked about this with Zach Steffen, it's hard to play him all the time because he's not playing all the time. Like, now you might have both of them.
Yeah,
it's a bad move.
Boy.
It's a bad move for the national team. It's a good move for him.
Great move for Turner.
I take it in a minute, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's everybody's childhood dream. Absolutely. Go ahead and do your thing, player. But when it comes to the national team, I remember Argentina was in a similar situation where they had Romero and a couple of guys just sitting at benches in Europe, and they'd rather go with local guys in the Argentine league that were, having regular minutes. When it comes to you being a goalkeeper, having regular minutes is big time, man. Ugh.
Oh, man. Craziness. Well, things are going to continue to get crazier around MLS with all these trades, with all this GAM flying around, people leaving, people coming. It's going to get chaotic. Niko, thanks for keeping us up to date on everything that you know. We'll talk to you next week, man.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one. It's always good hanging out with y'all and your audience, man. Have a good one.
Always, man. Thanks, Niko. All right. That's craziness from Matt Turner potentially here. Some other things that have popped up this morning that we're going to leave you with. We had mentioned Martin Pais of FC Utrecht, goalkeeper, headed to Dallas. That appears to be done. That is a 23-year-old goalkeeper going to Dallas with a loan with an option to buy. They'll get a chance to see if he can be the guy down the road. Jimmy Mauer's the incumbent number one there. Columbus is linked with an Australian center back, and I'm trying to find his name, but there's been so many other things that have popped off here lately. A rumor also for Columbus of James Igbekeme from Real Zaragoza. Seems like it could be legit, according to Jacob Myers of the Columbus Dispatch. The Pice deal is done to Dallas. Dallas has announced that now. Man, this is going to be a crazy day with all of this. You're getting some more homegrowns announced. Zach Ryan, who played at Stanford, has signed a homegrown deal with the New York Red Bulls. Wasserman Group, who represents a ton of players in MLS, ton of domestic players, posted a series of graphics with their homegrown signings for this year, and a bunch of them hadn't been announced yet, which was kind of interesting. So those are all starting to come to fruition. I think Ryan was one of them on that list. The Australian national team center back is Milos Degenek, who is set to go to Columbus. They needed a center back after they made a move of Boubacar Keita. So now they have added Degenek. Milos Degenek from the Australian national team going to Columbus, according to Jacob Myers. I'm sure there will be 50 other things that happen before we start tomorrow. Chaos. Oh, and now Ousmane Dembele has issued a statement.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that's good. I'm sure this is going to be lovely and wonderful and everything that Barcelona needs right now in dealing with it. Let's pull up Ousmane Dembele's statement here so we get his side of the story. Paraphrasing or getting translated and getting it down to the nuts and bolts here. Don't think I'm out of the project. Don't speak of intentions I never had. I have a contract and I'm available for Xavi. I'm not going to give up. There are contract talks ongoing. My agent is on it. I'm only focusing on the pitch. That is what it boils down to. Okay. Your agent has not exactly been saying smart things publicly, Ousmane. So you might want to keep that in mind and maybe consider a change in representation at some point when he's comparing the amount of money that you should get to chases of Erling Haaland, who is a generational talent. I'm sorry you haven't shown that, my friend. Good luck. We'll see how that goes. Also, speaking of agents who maybe talk out of turn, Miguel Almiron's agent spoke on the radio yesterday, and Roberto Rojas had some of that on his timeline. Reportedly, according to Almiron's agent, there is an 80 million euro release clause on him, which, I mean, that's fine. We've talked about release clauses. That's not a valuation. That is if you pay this, sure, you can have him. So, okay, that doesn't shock me when they paid somewhere in the round of 25 million US for him. Okay, got that. But Almiron's agent is starting to put a little bit of pressure on what could happen next for his client. And look, that part's valid because he doesn't seem to be in Eddie Howe's long-term plans. It's not good for his long-term career to stay there if he's not. Newcastle is going to start to spend money and bring in talent, and is that going to push Almiron even further out if he's already on the outside looking in? I think that's a safe assumption. We saw this at the very end of the Atlanta to Newcastle conversation with Miguel Almiron, where his agent started to insert himself into the public conversation a good bit. And it didn't end up being an issue here, at least from what we saw and how everything worked out. I don't think it's going to fly too well in this situation. I hope that it doesn't derail any issues potentially with a move for Miguel Almiron, because he does need to go here at some point. If he's not going to play, he needs to go. It's nothing about Newcastle. It's for Miguel's long-term future. Just craziness. Yeah, Alex Bassine's read Dembele's entire statement, says it's fine, didn't dig a hole. I mean, what he says there is fine. I don't trust Dembele's agent to get it done. That's what it really comes down to for me. And also, going back to Almiron, like, I do wonder if his agent can get a proper situation handled here and get him to a good place. I don't know what that place is. I mean, I really don't. Like, I think there's probably more questions for what is next for Miguel Almiron now than there were after his time in Atlanta. I mean, I think you knew where his development was headed in his last year here in Atlanta. He was going to Europe. He'd shown the ability. He'd shown incredible talent. All that was there. There weren't really big questions. It was, can he adjust? Can he be better? Can he be at a higher level? Normal questions. Now, I don't know what the level is because of the way he's been handled at Newcastle. Could he go to another club in England? Yeah, you'd probably be talking mid-table ish, championship. I wouldn't want to see him in. I don't think his game suits it. Would a club in Italy or Spain come in and offer an amount that Newcastle would want? Remember, they paid around 25. Like, it was a different market, sure, but they can write it off. They've got the money to write it off, but do they want to? Are they going to be asking for 30? Are they going to be asking for 40? Is anybody going to come for 30 or 40 for him? I don't know. Are they going to have to take 15 or 20 or a loan with an option or obligation to buy? Is kind of where I'm at. I'd love to see him go to Italy. I would also, and it's a little bit of a wild card, I would kind of love to see him go to Germany, because I think his game in transition moments would be well suited for some teams in Germany. But I just don't know if his agent can get a good deal done for him. I hope so. I hope so. But he said some kind of wild things here at the end that I don't think really helped the situation with Almiron going from Atlanta to Newcastle, and he's starting to talk again, and I don't think that's a good sign. I don't think that's a good sign at all.
No, when you have agents running their mouths publicly in these kinds of situations, you're not benefiting your player by opening your mouth and saying things. There are ways to say things as an agent when you're trying to make
there's times to say things. I think that's the biggest difference. Is when he did it here, I think he felt like he had to try to get the deal done because it had kind of stalled out a little bit. Okay, I get that. I think he went overboard, but I get the idea. Like, I don't think there's anything in the works right now. I think he's preemptively getting out there and maybe going to do damage to it.
And, when you have Miguel first show up at Newcastle and Steve Bruce admits he doesn't know how to use him, you have a player and you don't know how to use him. Then when he does figure it out, you see in Miguel Almiron what we saw here in Atlanta. And now with Eddie Howe, new manager, philosophy, whatever, he's not a part of this picture. And so what should be the best thing for both Newcastle and for Miguel Almiron is to move on. But you need to have an agent saying the right things in this situation, and you don't need to have him basically running off at the mouth. It needs to be a constructive presentation so he can go someplace to go to that next stage in his career. You can't just sit there and wag your finger in the air as an agent and think that it's going to be a constructive conversation with your client.
He needs the right move for his long-term future right now. It's a significant one for Almiron. He needs to go to the right place to play and thrive. And I don't know. We'll see where that is. This is going to get interesting. And I've said it before, and hashtag sorry, Alex. I really do question Eddie Howe as the long-term person overseeing this vision at Newcastle. I really, truly do. Maybe it works out. Maybe he's the right guy and it just isn't working yet. Maybe he doesn't have the pieces, but I think it's going to be a little bit like City, where it took them a minute to figure out, and they're going to have to get people in. City ultimately hit on a plan that came good. It took them longer than they planned on, but the plan was to hire all of Pep Guardiola's friends so he would take the job eventually, and he did, because that's what they did. They went to Barcelona and raided and hired all of Pep's close confidants and all of his buddies, and ultimately that was where he was going to go. I don't know what Newcastle does, but I think they're going to fail before they get it right, and I think their managerial appointment might be one of them. That's just my opinion at this stage. We'll see where that goes. All right, I think that's everything for now. I'm sure there'll be 20 things that pop off later. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Mike Conti will be with us. We can dig deeper into Atlanta United. Then team's training right now. There's been some video posted from the team. We did see Mikey Ambrose and Daniel Blayu get out of health and safety protocols yesterday. I don't know if anybody else is out of it today. It didn't look like Gonzalo Pineda was there speaking to the team beforehand today. So not quite there for him. I'm sure he's watching everything on video and interacting with everybody as much as he can, talking to the guys as much as he can. It stinks for him. We talked yesterday about all of the comments from Darren Eales speaking with the media. We got into all of that. We got into it on Stoppage Time too. If you missed that, that is up on facebook.com/929thegame. We can revisit any of that for you tomorrow and anything else that happens between now and then, which the way it's going in MLS right now, who knows where players are by the time we get to 9:05 tomorrow morning. A bunch of games today, just to remind you, if you're looking for things to watch, you've got Liverpool and Arsenal from the Emirates. That is going to be Gummy Bear Cup semifinal leg 2. That's on ESPN Plus, correct?
Efforting, but that sounds right.
Okay, thanks. Don't worry about efforting. We're leaving, John. You don't have to effort anymore. ESPN Plus, or you can find it. Live Soccer TV will help you out. Also, ESPN Plus, 1 o'clock, Elche and Real Madrid, Copa del Rey, Athletic Club and Barcelona at 3:30. You got Roma and Lecce and Copa Italia at 3 o'clock. That's on Paramount Plus. Fanatis has got your AFCON tournament, which is already underway. Ivory Coast has a 1-0 lead on Algeria in the 33rd minute. That is not what Algeria needed. They're probably going home. Sierra Leone, Equatorial Guinea are scoreless, and that would put Equatorial Guinea into the next round, and Sierra Leone would be right on the line of getting into the next round. Games at 2 o'clock, Gambia, Tunisia, Mali, and Mauritania. You've got Liga MX tonight, San Luis hosting Juarez, and you've got Colombian action tonight, 8:05, America de Cali hosting Envigado is one to keep an eye on. That'll do it for us. We'll be back at 9:05 tomorrow. Mucho platio.
Mucho platio.